Welcome to Plat Chat Valorant. It's me, Tweedledum, here with Tweedledee and Tweedledummer as well on my right-hand side here. How's everybody doing this week? You all been getting enough sleep, huh?
I mean,
I have my headphones in wrong.
Yeah, sure.
Tweedledummer, literally Tweedledummer.
And yeah, I've been sleeping all right, I suppose. We were talking about this before the show, but somehow we've managed to do it again. But we're wearing the same color. We were wearing green a couple episodes ago at the same time, forest green. Then we were wearing blue the other day for the
I didn't even
and now we're wearing
that.
heather gray again.
Yeah.
Same color together. And you don't want to admit it, but you had to go back to your house for your phone charger. And he comes back wearing a gray T-shirt.
Phone charger, wearing a grey T-shirt.
No, he's committed to the bit.
No, it's nonsense. I was already wearing this originally. By the way, I'm going to require Avast and Balla to start syncing up clothes as well, so that we have like this two.
Well, but the difference is that we know what to wear ahead of time, but the opposite of each other. You guys are so synced up that you're just always going to wear the same stuff. Balla and I know that we need to be distinct.
Opposite size, opposite colors. We're chilling.
From the Borg, from the Flat Chat Borg.
White
that's
and
happening
beige,
in the house.
classically opposite colors.
That's basic color theory.
Oh my God, we just started seeing you guys.
Yeah, now we haven't been able to see you. Now, now you guys look like you're like a. Look at do a Hanes commercial. You're gonna do a Hanes commercial or something. You're in the gray shirts. You're walking around like Michael Jordan's gonna be in the airplane. It's like, oh, this is the comfortless Hanes tag. No tags on my shirts anymore. Like that's what it's looking like over here. It's good.
There was a horrendous amount of Valorant this week. Is that just me? There's just an obscene amount of Valorant getting played at the moment. It felt like because there's no Challengers 3 anymore, people just tried to smush Challengers 1 and 2 together in Europe and elsewhere in the world, and it's only North America that's had the sensible nature to play out 1 week, 1 tournament. Everywhere else, you got 2 tournaments being played.
Korea's only doing like 1, right? So we're chilling in Korea in terms of their watching and keeping up over there. But you're the only person on planet Earth who's watching literally every single Valorant game ever. So I don't know.
I'm not anymore. Listen, I'm not.
Just giving up.
It's unbelievable. This guy's I'm going to say it, anti-NA bias has been ripe this week. Refuses to watch Envy. Food or Victor rather playing Sky. He won't watch it.
No,
he refuses to watch it. It's unbelievable.
Single best game yet. I don't know.
We're doing the companion. We're doing the companion stream. All of us hanging out. We're having a good time. Good. He comes in. Fucking sourpuss comes into the channel again, and he immediately. This is no FPX guild. We're watching like Cloud9 versus Immortals. Like not even close. You can't even align it in the tiers of the. Well, Angel and Bonkar. It's unbelievable.
Okay, but there seemed to be, and also from our interview with BCJ, he was talking about it. A distinct lack of seriousness being applied to the later stages of that tournament. I went back and I watched the important elimination games. I didn't watch the seeding parts. You telling me you took a lot away from the North American games where Xset and Envy were playing? And
I learned a lot.
Did you?
What did you find not serious about those games, Josh? We watched them all. I have to say, it was entirely serious the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay, we were coming up with all sorts of very important terminorology. What does BCJ mean? What does FNS mean?
Can't say it on the show.
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I should. Let's just say he's an enthusiast of things that are large, but I'm not going to say which things.
I mean, B probably stands for big then, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. You're right. And
J
stands
is
for junkie. Yeah, correct. Correct.
I could see, That's so weird. That's
very serious games. Very serious.
These are the things that we were discussing during the companion stream while we watched Food, or I should say Victor, play Sky and flash his teammates 20 times. So it was a good time.
Well, let's get cracking with that. Actually, no. Let's wind that back a second. My hosting duties again, just appalling every single time. We got a new patch, so I wanted to talk about that first anyway, because...
We do?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Patch 2.07.
Oh, right. It came out during the tournament. Yeah.
So we're now
leaked during the tournament.
The most recent games that we've been watching are now 2 patches behind the one that's been announced right now. Because even though they're going on to patch 2.06, we've been watching patch 2.05. And
I got to say, okay. Sorry. Something just triggered in my brain, and I'm about to have a breakdown. But I can't fucking take this patch anymore. I'm already I'm mad at this patch. Not 2.07, but the previous one too. Just I'm clumping 07 and 06 together.
They're the same.
And I've had enough. I've seen enough. I've had enough. Playing any ranked game, Astras, Vipers and Astras, walls everywhere, stars. I've had enough. I can't take it anymore. I've had enough of the Viper.
Yeah, I've been getting more and more annoyed. Ow, I just kicked the table and bruised my shin.
He's so annoyed.
I've been getting more and more annoyed with the concept of the Viper buff from the previous patch 2.06, and then also Astra's Ultimate. I've been molding watching Astra's Ultimate. I don't know whether this has been the case for any of you guys as well, but it is such an unfun ability to have in the game, in my opinion. And I am going to die on this hill. I know that it's very new, and I know that the pros don't know how to use it particularly well at the moment, but I fucking hate it. I
was nodding because I thought you were like, nobody's using it correctly. Well, yeah, I didn't realize it was a frustrating ability. Or you just mad that you're watching them? I don't like the
core ability itself, Balla, as well. And I'm going to rant about it before we get onto this new patch because I've got to get it out my system.
Okay, get it off.
All right, here's why I fucking hate it. It's a wall that goes down. It's like a smoke, right? It's not really a sage wall. It doesn't block people from pushing through it. It's more like a smoke that you can't shoot through. So there's no punishment for just swinging through it and trying to catch timings on people. And I swear that's all that happens every time there's every time an Astral goes down. It's just somebody waits on the other side of it and they're like, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, sure. I'll just dip through it now. And they just push through it, and they're either pre-aim in some position, and there's no way that you can hold the entirety of the Astral wall. It simplifies and boils down the whole round. As soon as the wall goes down, it just boils it all down to, who can push through the wall and see if they can win an aim duel. I don't like it. I don't like it. Get it out the game. Fucking replace it with something else. It's the first ability in the game where I've really felt a hatred for an ability that's in the game. I don't think it's additive to any strategic element at the moment. It's just the way that people are using it is just.
What do you mean? Poop. This looks.
Here's the thing, though. I fully realize that it's a very reactive take, a very emotive take. People are going to get better with the ability. It's going to look better in the future. But right now, it's making me more out of control. Because even when people use walls that seem like they should be good, it's just. It just incentivizes shitty play where you're just.
What's the difference between like when they use a good smoke versus an Astral wall? I feel like it's the same thing. You just get the advantage. They try to timing you.
Well, I think good smokes tend to be confined within choke points, right? And they're quite small. So if you're holding the smoke, you have good crosshair placement, which is different. If you put down an Astral wall, it's very hard to get. So
that's a shit Astral wall if you end up doing, because that's what we saw this weekend, and even in pro play, it's like
but also
generally people just suck at putting it down. They just put it down where there's so much space behind it. It's like literally 15 people could all fit behind and literally.
But is that a good ability if you are only limited to using it to cut off a choke point in the same way you would a single smoke? I feel like that's just a bad ability then. It's if you can't use it for its like size.
It's just a bigger Viper wall that
I think
blocks bullets.
Yeah, I feel like that's cool. I feel like the excess height and width of it has in a way made people use it incorrectly, because it's often best used just to, I think, like cover a door that players need to retake out of. And like, for instance, I don't know, people would use it on bind, and either if they were using it on A, they would put it like basically center through the site. And it mimicked that old set execute with the smokes where you just smoke to the left and the right side of the triple box. Yeah. Like people would put it there, for instance. And then what you're talking about with people finding timings just happens. And I saw the similar thing on B. Like people would put it kind of towards more of the middle of the site near the container. But in reality, the ult would be more powerful if they just put it right on the door from CT, because then the players coming out of that door just have to run out, and if you have one guy standing in hookah looking at it, it's a free kill. Like, I think genuinely, I think that the ult being so goddamn girthy has actually it has created this deceptive idea as to how to use it, where it's like, oh, it's so big, we should just block off as much space as we can. Where in reality, if you just put it in front of a door it just basically locks off that door from retakers indefinitely.
But
the other thing
only
is
as good as a
sound.
smoke.
Right.
No, but people try to use it as a smoke, but without sound on the other side of the smoke, you are screwing yourself even more because then you can't even hear that the timings are about to come.
Yeah.
You can't hear that the flash is about to come through. You can't react.
If you put it in a doorway, they can still flash through it, and it becomes a disadvantage for you. You can't spam it, unlike a smoke, right? So you can't even punish people that like they peek their head in and then run away again. No. You can't punish that, whereas you could with the smoke. I don't know. It just...
You're tripping. You're tripping. You're tripping right now.
I see where Josh is coming from, though, because realistically, compared to all the other ults where they give you like something very distinct, generally, even if they're varying levels of useful, the Asher ult is just like a smoke that you can't spam, and the enemy can't spam through either, you know? And also, it works both ways, though, because of the fact that like you can't hear them coming through and they can't hear you, right? So like it's sort of a pretty double-edged sword in that respect. So I do see where it's coming from.
It's a double-edged sword if you use it bad, but if you use it right, then it's not a double-edged sword. You're just putting yourself in the advantage. You're not if you make it so that nobody can take advantage of it because you put it right on the doorway, on 2 chokes or whatever, then all of a sudden it's not a.
I think there's a lot of room to grow for it though, because we were mauling about it when we were watching the games. That like they would put it up like split sight, and then the entire team would get behind there, marshal their troops, and then march on out the gates, and there'd be nothing they could do, like because they would all be behind the site. Yeah. And they had a wall to protect them. But
I feel like
bad use is definitely a big problem. I think that's affecting.
I think I don't like it as well because it's such a simplifier. Like as soon as it goes up, you just wait it out or you gamble and push through it. Like those are you don't have options to counterplay. It's not interactive. There's no like timer that you're playing around particularly. You just kind of, if it's a good wall, you just wait for it to disappear. If it's a bad wall, well, you just fucking push through it and see if you can catch a timing on someone. I don't know. I haven't been enjoying it, but whatever. We'll wait until it gets better. Patch 2.07, I guess. Let's talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, nothing's really in this bad boy except for the gravity well changes for the most part.
Yeah. It just pulls agents that are diffusing the spike.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, just no counterplay to that.
Yeah, I mean,
realistically, right? I mean, is there counterplay?
You can tap the spike and try and bait out the gravity well. That's about it. You just
but even if you tap the spike, if you don't get away fast enough, you get caught in the suck. You know,
you're still getting pulled.
You still get caught in the suck, anyways.
Post-plant metas are shit in this game. Like if the game trends in a direction where you're just supposed to run away from the site and spam utility at the spike as to win the post-plant, that is a bad direction for the game to go in. There's only a few ways in which the game can go in a like objectively poor direction, and one of them is everyone on your team has some like preset molly or whatever, or you're just spamming the spike by pinging it and stuff. Those are the least interactive rounds that you can get in Valorant right now. They're not fun to watch. They're just RNG or difficult to interact with. And when you're playing the retake, that shit feels awful as well. When you have to navigate a minefield of 7,000 different pieces of utility just to get the spike off. And the players are playing in bloody Narnia, especially if it's a Astra who literally doesn't have to play anywhere near the spike in order to get a lineup. I don't think this is the right direction.
It is not. It is simply, it's not fun. It's also not interesting. And I think the only solution for that is to just not have agents trend in that direction. Like this change should be reverted. Like I've seen at various times people speculate then of like an agent that can in some way counter the utility coming down.
Yeah, like
but that's also not interesting. To just have an agent that denies utility coming at the spike from across. So then you have to run that and put up a
then that denies like every setup that's ever existed for like Killjoy or Sova as well. If you have the anti-utility agent that eats it all.
And then I don't know. That would like the worst case scenario is that it just trends in that direction, and then every post plan is just lobbing utility over the walls.
Every game
other.
I've seen that has a trophy system as a thing. And by trophy system, I mean it's a passive ability that you put on the floor and it eats a certain amount of projectiles that come towards it. It's a must pick. Every single time that I've seen it used in a game, it becomes a must pick ability because it's just so powerful. It consumes passively other people's stuff. I mean, maybe if it was like Diva where you had to aim it and like you're trying to eat mollies and shock darts out of the air as it comes towards you, maybe. But that's so, I don't know. That's so niche.
Sorry, I just have to say as well, it's just an unnecessary change given that Astra's been in the game for 20 minutes. We have not even really seen what she can do, and clearly, given now that we're getting some more games, more tape, more data, it's really good.
Even
so,
before this,
we need to
her
buff
pick
right
rate
away?
was going. It was 18% the first opens, moved up to 26%. Now it's like 30% after challengers, and in this last Renegades tournament, or in this last NSG like weekly thing, it's even higher. So yeah, I mean, it was already trending up. I don't think that we needed to. I think this is like fundamentally they were like, oh, actually, this is how we want it to be, and they're like, yeah, let's just change it right now before anything else happens. But in terms of like the post plant thing, I think I like sitting in the middle where. Like, yeah, you guys, I agree with all of what you guys are saying. It's not fun to watch. It's not anywhere interesting, especially if you start adding like trophy counters and stuff like that. But I think if there was like one Molly, for example, that could come down, I think that would be cool. Like back in the day when we used to play Brim and Beta, it wasn't like a fun meta, but it was like hype. You know, it's like, oh, he sells the Molly, they have to rush him down, like that sort of thing. That was like an interesting moment. But when it's Viper and Astra and they have 2 mollies plus 2 gravity wells plus their shock darts coming in and Hunter's Fury, it's just like the worst thing possible.
I mean,
it's so boring.
It's the worst time for it as well with the Viper. With just endless mollies, endless shock darts.
I mean, the smoke is part of the worst. It's almost the worst part about it. Because a Viper smoke on the thing can be reactivated multiple times. And every time you activate it, it's going to do that first 50 points of decay damage immediately. Which I still can't wrap my head around why that is in the game at all.
Yeah, that's such wild. It's so
I'm about to go off again.
It's such lazy balancing.
Every time it gets mentioned, I don't know. It is unbelievably frustrating and unfun to play against. It is just not fun.
If you have to give an agent a fucking death aura so that whenever she looks at you, you take a third of your health, then you need to address the core problems of the agent. If that's the buff that it requires, to get her being played more often, address the core problems. Why? Give her an extra smoke. Let her retract her one smoke. Give her something to make her more viable in her role as a smoker. Don't just buff the damage and buff the numbers. That's so reductive. It's so lazy and misses the point of what the issue is.
But it's beyond just buffing the damage, right? Because it's one thing if they had, okay, you decay a bit faster. It's literally just 50 damage right there. Like instant minus 50. Just
no
like
conditions,
that's crazy.
nothing.
It's not even an increase in decay rate. It's just 50 damage right off the bat.
Well, I mean, they tried that stuff, right? They tried the increase of decay rate. They tried like all that stuff was tried already for Viper, and then they're just like, screw it, let's just go full send. Let's make it so that Viper is played, so that we could actually like observe it, I guess, in a sense.
I guess
maybe. There's a problem when the meta of it becomes just put the fucking wall straight down the map. They'll have to walk through it, and they're gonna take 50. It's so silly.
So
just the Viper Astra duo right now is just entirely frustrating to play against. I've
been trying to watch like as much of new patch as possible, like the nursery tournament and the one that happened yesterday as well. And watching these teams play on the new patches is interesting because like I think that competitively, yeah, it's oppressive and it is super frustrating to play against, but it's not actually like overpowered in a sense. Because these teams are just timing through the wall altogether, and they're like they're still not respecting it when things are happening, which is really interesting. Like Renegades is just like,
isn't that almost the worst case scenario too?
Yes,
it's like
it's
not having a competitive impact at a like coordinated level, but in ranked it just feels terrible to play against. You have to, whenever you're doing balance changes, it's not just about finding the perfect mathematical balance possible. You also have to address the feelings of your players. There's a perception part that always comes into balance, which is, does this feel good to play against? Does it feel interactive? Is it fun? Is it fun to play against? Is it fun to play with? It's not even more fun to play with this change. It's not like you're doing anything cool.
You can't even feel it. You can't even feel the fact that they take 50 damage. All you get to do is try to kill them faster when they come through. It's just really, really weird. Yeah, no, the feeling aspect, the whenever you even see a Viper wall, you're just like, I'm getting griefed. Like, this is awful. Like, it's so bad in that aspect that I feel like the pro players, when they're actually playing in this comp, it's just like they're just gonna rage, and the games are just gonna be bad after that. After a certain point, you know.
Not every agent needs to be viable all the time on every map. It's okay to have niche agents that have their place and their roles on some maps. And that's where Viper was, and I think it was fine. It's never going to happen. There's going to be like 50 agents in this game in a few years.
Yeah.
There's just no, it can never be done. So having Viper as just a cool agent that she has a role like, oh, okay, she's going to be used on Icebox. That's cool. And when some teams bring out on Split, that's cool. We're seeing her on Bind.
Yeah,
cool.
a lot on Bind, actually.
So it's the agents will find their place naturally. I think obviously not all of them. Like sometimes, obviously you're going to need to buff sometimes. Like hello, Yoru. But if you're witnessing enough data, which I think that we had, to say that she is viable under X, Y, and Z circumstances, which are fairly map dependent, which is always going to be the case in a game like this, that I think you've reached the goal of where an agent should be. I don't think you need to push it further than that.
I think we were there too.
Yeah, we were.
EU was fantastic. The Viper play that we were seeing is absolutely fantastic. So
I think they're looking more at ranked.
Sorry, what?
I think they're looking more at ranked, right? Rather than pro play.
Yeah, but I also think that there was like a timing thing where they're like, okay, Omen is the only viable controller right now. And they're like, this isn't working. And they like forgot that they were releasing Astra or something, or they were like, no, we have to try to get these changes, but we can't do it before Masters. So we're going to do it after Masters. And then they do it after Masters, and then Astra comes out, and it's just like, oh, wait, this doesn't work. Because imagine this, like, okay, maybe this is actually a terrible thing to imagine, but imagine we don't have Astra, we just have the Viper buffs. Now we at least are having like some duality between the controllers that we're playing, maybe? Like, I mean, that?
Not even that, right? Like, it's not like Viper's become more viable as a solo smoker anyway. She hasn't. Nothing about that has actually changed. She's not more flexible in terms of how she can lay down her utility. They haven't fixed that. She still has one smoke, and she yeets it. You need a lineup to be able to throw it, and then it's gone. Bye-bye. You've thrown it into the ocean. Also, Balla, you just reminded me of the worst part about this entire discussion, which is that Challengers Finals and probably Reykjavik are going to be on this kind of patch, and people are going to be incentivized to play Viper because she's so OP, or at least over-tuned, and they're not going to have planned for it accordingly. So it's not even like we're going to see great Viper play, probably, because the teams have been forced into it rather than having their own ideas of what they want to do with it. Molding.
Just playing on a SEN.
And also, it's still an issue too. On top of that, it's a really bad timing where we're in a situation where, since the spectator tools are still developing, they're still in their infancy. You know, they're learning how to walk. They're crawling right now. Soon they're going to be walking, but they're still in the toddler stage. And now we're going to have Astra smokes, Astra wall, Viper walls, Viper smokes, Viper ults, all over Reykjavik, like on Challengers Finals everywhere, and there's no color coordination. We don't know what's going to be happening. Like, even during, like, when we were watching some of the games this weekend and earlier, it's wild how much the amount of visual clutter has upscaled at points in certain fights without those heroes. Now imagine with Viper and Astra full time, all the time for LAN. Like, it's going to be like, I can already tell that, like, immediately what's going to happen. What's going to change is, like, no longer is Valorant a dead game. Now Valorant is a confusing visual clutter game that sucks. And like, that's going to be the new Twitter narrative, you know, because because it's going to be silly. It's a terrible time when our spectator tools are so early on to have this much potential visual clutter in a very, very big first LAN moment.
That Xset Envy game, when Xset hit Envy with the triple wall execute on A Ascent, triple wall. They put down the Cosmic Divide. What we did is Viper wall comes in, and then Thwifo on Sage runs in with a wall. The fucking triple wall execute. It's just, it's too much. It is too much. But also, no, really. If by any chance, if some sort of developer or someone is watching, they could reach out to a developer. I don't know, they have their mail, send them an envelope, mail. let them know to at least color coordinate the abilities on the minimap, because with in some of these games where there's like a Killjoy, a Cypher, and 2 Astras, I can't see what's what.
Well, actually, part of the patch notes that we had here as well were involving that change being added.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had color-coordinated Cypher tripwires. Now, I don't know why they didn't extend this further and go to, like...
everything else.
Killjoy.
Alarm. Well, the big thing to me is the Killjoy ones are normally pretty evident, in my opinion, because they have to play within a cluster, and they're always positioned based on, like... how, like, it's very clear most of the time where the Killjoy utility is, whether it's an attacker or defender utility. Astra, it isn't in the slightest. Astra, you have to pause the game and go, why would they place it there? Oh, right, that's why. It's the attackers. Why is that one there? Oh, it's for that reason, therefore it's the attackers. You have to, like, reverse engineer all of the shit on the map and figure out its purpose before you can figure out who it is.
It's the same way with Viper walls, too. When you have a site that's being hit and someone saves their wall, like on Icebox, for example, for B site, where the defenders will save their wall or something to split the site for the retake, there's like 2 walls intersecting and everyone's walking through walls and you're like, whose wall is which? I don't know. I have no fucking clue what is happening on site right now.
But so they have added this associated team color for the Cypher tripwires, which people have been asking for a long, long time. Now, why the tripwires are still moved 90 degrees to the way that they should be, I don't know. That's still a thing. But this at least implies that they have the technology. We now have the technology.
For color.
Yeah. So I assume that something similar will be added to Astra. Because Astra is the biggest defender right now, in my opinion.
I mean, why not just add it to everything, right? I mean, what's the drawback?
Probably, yeah.
What's the? Yeah. There's no drawback.
The thing is,
all of them.
I don't know what this looks like when it's actually on the minimap at the moment, because we haven't seen it. It's just been announced that it's being added. But most of the outlines are black background with white logo drawn on top. Yeah. Is roughly how they are. You don't have to make the black part the team color. You can make the white drawing the team color. It only has has to be that subtle, and it will still be helpful. I don't know which way around it's going to be, but it doesn't have to be like a bunch of bright colors all over the minimap. You can still make it kind of subtle. You could even just put a small ring around it, around the outside or whatever, and it would still be more useful than it is currently.
Yeah.
You can't even. I'm looking at the VOD from last night in the NSG tournament. There's a Cypher trip bar. I don't see a difference.
But right now. I mean, that was been played on patch 2.06, wasn't it?
No, 7. This was yesterday.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just don't even see a difference.
Well, then.
Okay.
Here, I'll send it to Kurt.
I don't know.
If you can pull it
we
up.
can all examine this. Get your microscopes out, Jack. Get your microscopes out.
Right. Why would you send this? This is not a link. You have to copy paste it.
Oh my God. Jeez. Give me a break. Here you go. God.
All right. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now.
Look how close he is to his camera. He's like an old man.
What the?
All right, what's going on here, huh?
I can't see.
I mean,
Can you see it? Are you sure this is a new patch? Are you
This is a new patch. Look, it's 2.07 behind
Wyatt played, so I mean, I guess.
Colors spotted.
Are you sure that's on 2.07?
It says 2.07 on the screen. Yes, I'm sure.
Maybe there's like a have the spectator tools been updated, perhaps?
Maybe they haven't.
No, it says now display to observers with associated team color.
Maybe it's an option and they haven't added it.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's it.
Okay.
Like maybe it's an option and they haven't. Those observers hadn't turned it on.
Well, it's about to be a 9-hour episode.
It really is. Okay, all right. Let's move on. This was the smallest patch they've ever released, and we've talked about it for 2 hours. All right, challenges 1, stage 2, challenges 1. 100 Thieves come out with the win. They beat Exit in the end.
Yep.
But more importantly, 4 teams have moved on to Challengers Finals. That's really the thing that matters here. The seeding is a bit all up in the air because there's still so many good teams that have yet to make it through from Challengers 2 because we had all of those big upsets at the beginning. So I don't know about you guys, but I don't even feel like seeding becomes that important. I'm not convinced that like Sentinels would get first seed in the next tournament. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's going to be that crucial to me.
Maybe we're not convinced, but like probability wise, the best teams are not going to be, not placing at the, what am I trying to say? They're not going to be placing 8th basically going into Challengers Finals. They're not going to get the 8th seed, right? Sentinels. So 100 Thieves getting 1st seed is probably, they probably have better chances because of that. It's not like the most important thing, and seeding never is the most important thing, but I think X at 100 Thieves getting the 1st and 2nd seed is probably a good thing for them.
Sure. Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the like crucial elimination games before we get into the top 4 though, because the games to decide the top 4, we had C9 coming off a spate of wins in the tier 2 scene essentially, right? Because they won like the NSG monthly tournament and that kind of stuff. And they come into this and immediately take down Immortals, so they started looking pretty damn good there. And then the way in which they kind of dropped off and ended up missing out on top 4, I think was a little unexpected to me. Like, I thought that Cloud9 would end up coming through with that 4th place spot, but instead it ended up being version 1. This was
so? You think that this was?
I think this was a bit of a surprise to me. Yeah.
I mean, considering C9 had beaten Gen.G in the open quals and Immortals earlier, it's a surprise to lose to version 1. I think that's a surprise for sure.
I would have absolutely rated Cloud9 above version 1 coming into this tournament, and like maybe not a whole tier above, but a couple of places above them for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, they just beat them in the NSG tournament as well, didn't they? I don't know whether they played against them, but they certainly placed much higher than them in the tournament itself, I think.
They beat them to a...
Oh, they beat them 2-0 during the tournament itself. Yeah, so I had the impression coming in that actually this was a bit of a Oh, well, I mean, Jesus Christ, I didn't realize it was 2018. I guess 35 is
35,
so... though, but 2018 is crazy.
Yeah, I didn't find that particularly odd. I mean, version 1 as well, if you want to talk about the route in, they did beat FaZe too, which was a good win. But I thought they were a pretty impressive team. They were a solid team. They have good fragging. Specifically, their Jett Penny is definitely like a legit star player. He's really good. He seems to he has that intangible quality where whenever a series gets deep, he always turns up. Like on the 3rd map, he just always goes off. He's a pretty clutch player in that way. That's just like the X factor that you cannot teach. He just has a knack for always showing up at the end for them. He's a really good player, but I think version 1 are just a solid team overall. Their attacking halves aren't, they're not doing anything remarkable. They usually find success off just fast site executes and good fragging. Their defensive halves are more impressive, I think. They have nice setups. I like how they play their early defensive rounds. I just think they're a pretty solid team. I think they're a solid team, and at the moment, I think that they're a bit more... They're more well-rounded in regards to the team play than Cloud9. Probably given that Cloud9 have gone through so many changes up until this point. Cloud9 were definitely, in my mind, they were making it through based on a lot of individual heroics versus a bit better of like the fundamental team play of a team like version 1.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that in the 100 Thieves C9 game, was that C9 seemed like they had some decent ideas, and their individual skill on players like Poison Leaf was very good. But the actual, when they had the idea to like run this exec, which seemed like it was good, I liked the plan, but then their execution of that was pretty sloppy and just came down to individuals trying to force duels as much as possible rather than really relying on their fundamentals and their trade-in and stuff to I think it was also like how they were taking the map on their attacking side as well. Their players, actually Zeta as well, had a great tournament in my opinion. He looked really impressive too. That trio of Poise, Leaf, and Zeta has some serious potential. But I think their team play is still pretty off. Like they shine as individuals, but not necessarily when it comes down to like, I don't know, the coordination you need to be at the tier 1.
Yeah.
I thought their game plans were lacking too. The game against Immortals, like especially that Ascent game. Yes, they ended up taking the series, and like Wyatt said, it's like individual plays, but that Ascent game was just poor. And they had the same issue on Haven as well, where it was like they were just bashing their head in the wall, doing the same thing over and over and over, and losing like pretty significantly on the first halves, and then coming back and like having heroics with Leaf and Poise, and honestly Zeta in my mind saved that entire Cloud9 Immortals game from them by winning the 2 pistols like single-handedly. So yeah, it's like a game plan thing. I think that I don't have too much context on Cloud9 before this, but what I do want to see from them is not too many adjustments in terms of comps or anything like this, because I think it fit. I think it worked. I think they just need more and more depth, because that's how you end up getting that team play stuff that you guys are talking about.
This roster could potentially get some mileage. Like, for real, this roster could get some mileage. And I feel like it's just it makes you sad, very sad, when you think about how long Poise was stuck as like the 6th man on this roster, when Poise could have been playing for C9 this entire time. And like, he was so good, and he just wasn't playing for the longest time.
He was their best player in this tournament. I mean, if not, maybe Zeta, because also Zeta just desperately needed to be on this support role the whole time. I will never that's. I mean, we don't need to fucking go back into history every time we talk about Cloud9. But why was he playing Jett? I mean, when you see this roster now with the comps they have now, it's just, why were they ever doing anything else? Also, given that it's not like this was some wild change that they needed to experiment to figure out, wait, Poise is good at Jett.
Yeah.
Zeta was good at support. Like, we had all the information. Yeah. So, but I'm glad they're there. I'm glad that they've ended up in a place, and I agree, this roster could have some mileage for sure. And it is that trio. And Poise looked really good. I am glad we finally got to see him play, I guess, at all. When was I mean, I can't even remember the last time he's really played a tournament that we've watched.
It feels like
it was only open qualifiers, and he only played on like Bind or something like that. So.
Yeah, he played like one. Yeah, and he was playing Raze, I think, on like one. Yeah, so I'm just glad that we actually are getting to see him play, because now, also as a viewer, we know for sure, okay, this guy has real potential.
I want to move the conversation on a little bit to Immortals too, because they're one of the teams that people haven't talked about that much, but the expectations coming in for Immortals, I would say, were much higher than what they actually achieved here. They managed to beat Unbox, sure, but the early loss at Cloud9 and then going out to XSET feels to me like they've really failed to capitalize on an opportunity to get into Challengers Finals due to some large upsets. The major teams that normally take them down, the teams that they normally flump against deep in a bracket, were not present here particularly. I mean, sure, Envy was, 100 Thieves was. They didn't lose to those guys. They lost to C9. They lost to XSET. This is not... I feel like the aspirations for Immortals are way higher than this.
I feel like we had... I think Immortals came in a bit overestimated, and definitely, I think, in context of... I know I was definitely hyping them up coming in because they just blew TSM out of the water. And it turned out that the two maps they rolled TSM on, Haven and Bind, were by far their better maps in this tournament. Every other map they played on was kind of a dud. When they got to those two, they could find wins. And that was the problem for me. I think their map pool was it was strictly hit or miss.
Well, and they also have the hardcore at this point, and I put up the nomenclature at this point. I feel like they have a hardcore, so far at least, Mayfly or Cranefly, depending on what you say, syndrome, where like they start out really strong. They have like they have like a 1 day lifespan in the tournament where like they start out pretty good, and then as soon as they get past like the initial rounds, they just crater. Like some sort of weakness happens, whether it be map pool, whether it be they just don't execute. Because also even their C9 game, they had a great Ascent versus C9. Like C9 had no idea what to do against them on Ascent. Like they just owned the map so heavily. Now, granted, part of that was because C9 was not being very dynamic and doing very good like job with like map control or executes. But either way, there was points where Immortals definitely still had like very solid showings, and especially earlier on in the tournament. But they just stopped. I don't know, a lot of the things that they were doing, they sort of stopped doing as we go further into the tournament. And on top of that, they just stopped having nearly as impactful like setups where they could like catch people or crunch people like they were doing on other maps. So it's some sort of like, and they've done it multiple times now. This is not the only time that Immortals has done this with this particular roster. So it's odd to me that I feel like it has to be something just not clicking somewhere on top of the existing map pool issues the further they go on into the tournament.
I feel like they haven't been the same since the Stinger patch. I don't know if this is like some crazy hot take, but like after Challengers 2, they just like have never been the same, bro. They tried to like shot up on the breach stuff, and now it's finally, they're not really doing that, but they just haven't felt like that elite team like where LG was. We were like putting them next to Sentinels back in Challengers 1. And since then, it's just been like, yeah, I mean, there's still a team that should be getting top 4 for sure. Like, I'm not like reducing my expectations for them even that far. But they're not top 2, they're not top 3 anymore in a tournament like this. One thing I do think is that this experiment with Rossi is actually going like it's not a tank. He's playing pretty well. He's IGLing pretty decently for them. Like there wasn't any like fundamental like game plan mistakes or anything like that from my perspective at least. And his Astra looks pretty fun. Looks pretty good. He's doing some decent combos, but for the most part, it's just like him and Gangsta comboing, and they don't have anything else because nobody's playing Arrays or nobody's playing Sage or anything that will really combo with Astra very well. So that is a minus for sure.
And I think it's fair to say that they're like radically changing some of the roles and the IGL and that kind of thing. So it would take a little bit of time. That would be fair, except they don't have time. None of the teams have time. So it's not like you can just be, oh, well, you know, wait and see. They'll improve. Shit's real right now. Like right now is where you need to be good. Okay, you've missed your opportunity. You do have one more chance of being able to make it to Reykjavik, or at least make it to Challengers Finals in the first place. But things are starting to get extremely real, even if we're thinking about the context of champions right now. If you didn't get points during Masters 1 and you failed to qualify for Masters 2, shit's starting to get real for like your aspirations for the entire year at this point. And that's a scary thought for teams like this that are trying to be one of those teams that are on the come up. Yeah, you really have to get going pretty fast.
And unfortunately, yeah, that's the thing. I think they missed their shot. I don't see them making it in next week. It would be miraculous if they did. Something would have to majorly click with what they're doing.
There's so many good teams next week.
I mean, yeah, the next week is just crazy stacked. And it's not that they don't have a chance. They certainly do. And I actually like the changes that they were making with the comps. But it's just such a stacked week. Yeah, I mean, this was their chance to really make it. I just can't see them getting ahead of SEN, FaZe, etc.
If they want to make it, ShotUp needs to be way better. He needs to be back in the ShotUp is one of the best players in the world type of situation. Because this weekend he didn't feel like that at all. Like, yeah, he was still top fracking. He was walking down Haven, like pulling off some ridiculous shit. But like, he needs to be that ShotUp, not this ShotUp, I think, as well.
Well, the other team that was an interesting one to follow, I think, was Envy throughout this tournament. I want to talk about them for a while. We already talked with BCJ about Xset for quite a while as well when we did the interview with him. But Envy's an interesting one because our aspirations for Envy are always for greatness. Like they should always be the team that is a favorite, maybe not a favorite to win a tournament, but they're always
in the conversation.
They're always in the conversation. Yeah, sure. And this time they qualify and then they start running weird shit. What do you guys make of that? The Victor, Sky, and that kind of stuff. It feels to me like they are just hardcore saving strats for Challengers Finals.
I mean, they said as such on board with? Essentially, they all implied as much on Twitter as well. I mean, people were even saying that they had never seen fRoD play Sky in like a scrim, like other players that had scrimmed them until he showed up that day on the tournament playing Sky. And you could tell because his birds get entrapped, snared in a lot of situations on corners. His birds flash in his team multiple times, all the time. It was like clearly not a practice set play for them when you watch them play around the Victor Sky.
I think he bought Sky before the game. Actually, I think it's possible that he just purchased the agent. It was. I mean, yeah, they were just saving strats. I mean, what can you really say about that? I actually think the interesting dynamic was that in that game against 100 Thieves, though it was just for seeding at that point, and Envy were clearly they were doing the Sky. They were whatever. We're saving strats. We're just going to show up. 100 Thieves were playing to win, and I don't know if that's really been acknowledged because I think people have been more so focusing on the
underperformance,
not so much the underperformance, but rather just the seeding aspect of the qualifier, and that like Envy didn't try. 100 Thieves were showing their hand. It looked like to me.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see now what they have left in the tank and what they're going to cook up in like the next 2 weeks for the Challenger final. Because as far as I could see, I don't know how many more cheeky walls Ethan is going to bring out, but at this point, I mean, I pretty much know where Ethan is going to be at any point on a wall. He was letting it all go. They were running different strats. In fact, they're actually copying a lot of SEN's plays, which was funny. Like specifically, there was one that was literally they just did a SEN's pistol round against Heretics on Ascent on the last map of the EU finals. Right. They just copied a SEN's pistol. So I'm like, okay, they're clearly they're bringing some new shit to the table here, and they're just letting it fly in the lower bracket final where food is on Sky. So I'm wondering what they're gonna bring in Challengers finals. I think that was kind of the interesting dynamic of that game. But aside from that, for me, Envy were just. I mean, they kind of just coasted through, honestly. I felt this was a sure qualifier for them. It was cool to see Mummy playing Astra. They were one of the teams taking advantage of that, and he was playing the Astra really well. But for the rest of it, more of the same. Mummy was on Astra playing well. Victor's on Phoenix. He's running around. He's getting he's getting a ton of kills, and it was that Envy.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the structure of the Valorant scene at the moment, where teams are incentivized to throw away $50,000 tournament titles in order to save strats for Challengers finals? Because that is bonkers to me. It's fucking ludicrous.
I like how that started with, "What do you guys think?" And then you just
listen. I'm interested.
I think that they're just
can't argue against it.
I'm just interested in your guys' opinions, though, as well, because I was talking to the European teams, and I was trying to book some of them for backchat, actually, some of the players, and I was talking to the teams that had already qualified for Challengers finals. I'm talking to FPX and I'm talking to Guild, and those guys didn't want to come on any media shows whatsoever until they've already qualified for Reykjavik. Like those guys are like they are so focused, even when it got to, and Europe is different because the only seeding match was the grand final, but they were still fucking going at it hammer and tongs in the grand final, but presumably for seeding because they think it's going to be really important once they actually get there. And yet that same mentality did not carry over to North America. Is that because there's so many upsets? Is that because people just don't care about the tournament winnings, really, because they've already won so many?
I think there's the difference between EU and NA is that EU has literally never played out a bracket for seeding or otherwise, so they don't get a difference in pricing. They never had that anyways. Whereas NA is like, this is the, what is it, 6th played out bracket. We had the 2 first strike close qualifiers that they played out all the way. Envy won one of those and got first seed there. There was Challengers 1. That was won by Sentinels. Challengers 2 won by Envy again. Like, I think people are getting tired, and they also don't realize the aspect of like how decent seeding might be. But also in EU, Challengers finals, we're bringing in CIS teams, we're bringing in Turkish teams, like teams that definitely, if they're 8th seed, are going to be really, really potentially easy. I mean, we don't really know, but potentially
that's the
easy
idea,
for FPX to just roll over. And if they have a good bracket, then that could be, there you go. Because they're going to play single elimination too. It's going to be a top 8 single elimination bracket for EU. They're going to play 2 games and qualify for Reykjavik. So seeding is so crucial compared to the double elim.
Yeah. I think that's the big thing, is that if seeding mattered more for North America, they'd probably care more. But it is ridiculous, because we discussed this when we were watching the games this weekend, was that, like, theoretically, if Envy could have potentially lost in the lower bracket finals playing the strat to Xset, and they well, not the lower bracket finals, I should say they could have lost potentially earlier than that and not made it into the top 4, like when they were playing their like troll comps, they like the seeding could matter for them. It could have, like, there could have been instances where like them saving strats could have potentially affected them in a negative way.
It still can, right?
Because if
we assume that Sentinels qualifying first, they would play Envy first round, wouldn't they?
No.
Why is that not the case?
They play version 1.
They play version 1.
So I was going to say, hypothetically, though, if you want to go by Masters, they'd be playing against FaZe in the first round, who they got stepped on. FaZe just took their boot and they just stepped on Envy. That could happen. I mean, they could be going up against FaZe right away.
Yeah.
It's just weird because like there definitely is stakes on top of the money, $50,000 that were at stake there, and it's definitely a difference in mentality. I feel like, sure, seeding probably matters more for Europe. That's like kind of a definite 100%. But This just feels like I was watching a classic North American thing where like, it's seeding, we don't care. And then whoever didn't care about the seeding feels like they might just go and get slapped. And they're like, oh, I can't believe it. We did, like, I can't believe this happened after we threw away our good seeding.
Well, for NV2, they got first seed twice already, and they tried in those matches against 100 Thieves, and who was it the second time around? I think it was Sentinels, right? They tried in those matches. They didn't hide anything, and they just don't even really get a benefit because I think they lose in first round in both of those, or it was second round of first strike, and then lost in, I think it was, I don't remember who they played first in Master, but either case, like, they didn't really get any super value out of it.
Yeah, but it's not like the seeding itself was the issue. It's just the fact that they just didn't play.
Yeah, so why do they care in the first place? I guess.
But I mean, that's a very odd question. That's a very odd thing to do, right? Because like, theoretically, like I could be like, well, I've yet to break any bones or tear my ACL when I run without stretching, and I just never stretch. And eventually, I just collapse, right? So.
All right, metaphor Melvin, you're back again.
Back at it again.
The thing is, it's not like that though for Envy. I think Envy's thinking, oh, we played and we tried in these seeding matches, and then teams figured us out, right? That's their perspective.
Sure. Yeah, not the other one. I get that. I do get that. That's fair, but there has to be a middle ground. I feel between that and running Victor Sky, where he flashes his team 4 times into the site.
Okay, well, let's talk about 100 Thieves then, because they're the team that ended up coming out on top, and they looked like they've made some serious efforts to not really change their identity too much. It's not like they've gone immediately over to playing double duelist everywhere and playing something crazy aggressive, but they've changed up roles and they've changed up individual heroes being played. Like Arten is playing quite a bit of Phoenix now within a solo duelist comp, which is very unusual. To try and create a new identity for their team. It's not radically different, but it's different enough. And it seemed like they were using these matches to really limit test it out, see what it could get broken by, and they end up winning the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, again, we talked about it a little bit last time, but the Ethan Nitro switch was pretty crucial. I mean,
so good.
Ethan had an excellent
was nasty
tournament.
good on Sage,
he had an excellent tournament. I mean, immediately putting himself as not even probably.
He's just the best Sage.
He's the best Sage in NA at the moment, for sure.
I mean, who else plays it?
I mean, no one else is even really playing it, yeah. So he kind of wins it by default, but not to take away from the fact that he was also very good. But his utility is just really good, walls aside. I mean, he had 1 million cheeky walls that he was finding kills off of. But also just his slow orb timings and everything. He was playing very well. And then Nitro just looks very comfortable on that Omen role. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I would agree. I think that some of the stuff they were doing with Phoenix was pretty cool as well. I mean, it was kind of interesting on Ascent. They were playing their defense with the Phoenix in the way that has been booming them for weeks, with Asuna on a lot of the rounds playing aggressively on Cat when the smoke goes down. Him and another player on Cat, and he'll flash out and they'll peek off that.
Did you see the play that they made, actually, where they walled and they peeked above the smoke with Ethan above the wall, above the smoke, and then they flashed out Asuna on the bottom? That's gorgeous. That is a lovely, lovely set play to bring out. I mean...
That's what I mean, though. They were bringing out like some stuff.
I mean, they were bringing back ancient tech too, where they would use the wall in pizza to look out onto Cat and catch someone. They did
you want to talk about ancient tech? The Thwifo versus Ethan David P. walls in B main on Ascent. That one game where somehow neither team ever checked for a Sage peeking up on the wall over the little window with a box in B main. They were getting value every round. It was very, very silly, but
also good that I feel like Ethan's put a huge amount of effort into getting good at this agent, and he has very quickly. And I also think that freeing up Nitro to be able to play the Omen is just a great idea for this team. But my issue, though, still watching 100 Thieves when I was taking a look at some of their VODs, is that while the individual play is good, that's not the thing that separates 100 Thieves from being the winners of tournaments. What stops them being the winners of tournaments is their fundamentals. And I know that might sound silly because they all come from CS and they should be great at it, but they're not. Like, this team is not that great at just the coordination and the speed at which they go and help their teammates and everything working as a strict, disciplined system. They're not there yet. And that might take time, but again, they've now qualified for Challengers Finals. They have this time to do it. That's the next step in terms of getting good. If they work on that side of their game, they can be the best team in North America easily. Like, that is the next step for them to get the next level up. They've got all of the individual stuff down, I feel, and their strategies are pretty decent, and they've got some cool little tactical plays as well. But when I watch them play, their spacing is still very spread. And when I was watching them play against on Ascent actually too, a lot of their sight hits end up with Asuna going really deep. Ethan and Nitro are not quite behind him. Asuna's not holding the space that he creates. He's just continuing to push deeper and deeper. And then you still have Hiko and Steel way at the back. This aspect of their game still hasn't shifted fundamentally to me. And that's the big thing that they need to work on to win in the Challengers Finals. Because I think they have the potential to do it. This team could be the best in North America. But they're going to lose to good teams if they don't fix that.
Yeah. I actually think that they have a pretty solid chance right now of qualifying for Iceland, which would be cool. I mean, it would be a cool team to have there. I think they have, I agree with what you're saying. I think they have a pretty good chance. Are there any other teams in this bracket that we wanted to talk about?
I mean, I would say that I would like to talk about still. I feel like we have to finally talk about XSET.
Sure.
You know? Let's finally give XSET even 10 minutes instead of versus 5 minutes, you know?
Wow.
Because they actually had a pretty good tournament. And their match versus, I believe it was Envy in particular. No, it wasn't Envy. Where was the match where their split was like incredible? Their split was like one of the best splits I've like ever seen. Which was it? Which match was that? Was it the Immortals match? I think it was the Immortals. It was. The Immortals match, they 13-3'd Immortals, and their split, their heaven hold was disgusting. The way they set up their utility there, and they were using the breach flashes, it was so good. And like, it just reaffirmed to me how BCJ is definitely like, that guy is going to be a star. That guy, he already is really good, but he's going to be a star, I feel. BCJ.
You sound like a greasy agent from Hollywood.
You really did.
Yeah. Hey, girl, you're going to be a star.
Maybe I become an agent next, huh? Maybe that's my next career move.
God,
I become an agent.
That gave me the creeps there.
50% off the top of everyone else's hard work. I'm like, give me the money.
Taking the cream off the top. Hey, BCJ, talk to me. I can make you a star, baby.
Do you disagrey? I don't
disagree with what you said. I disagree with the way you said it.
He already sort of is.
Yeah, I mean,
all right, cool.
XSET, my big takeaway was the time that they've put into their setups in regards to their defense and the utility has absolutely paid off. They have their own unique approach with the Astra, where they're comboing everything off the Killjoy. It was working. Their defensive halves were amazing. They just bunkered down the sites. They could not be taken. The defensive utility was too strong. If they want to take their game to the next level, though, and qualify for Iceland, or even just, even if they, make like top 4, top 3 in a tournament with all of the top teams, like establish themselves in that tier 1 area of NA. They need to work on their attack sides. They're not there yet. They're very readable, as you saw throughout really the entirety of the tournament. Just so many rounds ending with them executing on a site where there's already 3+ defenders lying in wait. So they really need to work on their attack sides. But if they can do that, I think they're on the cusp. They are on the cusp.
Yeah, I think their attack sides were whack until they started messing around with the Viper stuff. Like, until they started messing around against Envy. Like, that's when they were all of a sudden like, oh wait, these are actually getting pretty interesting, which is cool because like most of that stuff it seems like was on the fly-esque. Yeah. Like they had the ideas from we did, but do you think after that it was just definitely on the fly.
Do you think any of the teams pull out the weird shit that they were playing today in not today, this week in Challengers Finals?
I think XSET does.
You think XSET might?
I mean, with current Viper.
Yeah, they literally just played next patch. They played next patch, but pre-patch, and they're like, well, let's. So yeah, I think
yeah. I mean, I forgot that the Viper is going to be broken, so I think a lot of teams might end up mixing stuff up. To be honest, but you think we're going to see the Victor Sky?
Dear God,
Next
no.
question.
I hope not.
Absolutely
Because
not.
it doesn't even make sense in the context of like the meta, right? Because I feel like you'd much prefer to have Victor playing Phoenix to flash through these various walls and stuff versus this guy. Like it doesn't make any sense.
All right. Well, that set us up for a really interesting situation, though, where... here was my final question, actually. Can we take a look at the bracket again, Kurt? Because I want to look at the 4 teams that actually qualified and ask you guys where you would rank them at the moment in North America. Because it's not as simple, in my opinion, as saying that the 4 best teams in NA made it through to Challengers Finals right now. But it's also, there's a mixture of upsets, but also... teams have to be good enough to even take advantage of the opportunity that's presented to them in the first place. So I'm not saying that these teams are bad or didn't deserve it in any way, but I think that it's an unusual crop of teams that have made it through the first round for the first top 4 teams in NA. So I want to ask you, where do you think this crop of teams actually matches up? And how dangerous is the next crop of teams going to be? Should we expect these teams to qualify for Reykjavik? Do you think that the 2 Reykjavik teams from NA are in this crop of 4? Where would you guys put them?
I'd say one team at least, and then the other team is coming from the rest of us.
You think? Yeah.
Are you talking about 100 Thieves when you think about that, or someone between 100 Thieves and Envy?
Yeah, 100 Thieves or Envy, I think could be. Those 2 teams are definitely probably. I don't see, unless Xset just had new meta just dropped type of situation here where that's a stream meme for those that are watching. That's a stream meme. But it's a very good situation for them considering that Viper and Astro they playing a lot is gonna be meta for them right now and very strong, right? Compared to most NA teams that haven't really been playing nearly as much Viper. But it's hard to not think that Envy or 100 Thieves based on the performance. Obviously we didn't see Envy play their absolute best versus 100 Thieves and such, but it's hard to believe those 2 teams aren't going to be the ones that are going to be more than likely to qualify when looking at the results.
I think one thing that's super interesting is the fact that 100 Thieves and Envy are the 2 outside of Envy playing Mummy, none of them. I don't think I've ever seen any of their players play Viper.
Yeah.
Which is going to be cool because Xset has an advantage. I think Immortals has an advantage because they've played Viper in the past, but obviously Immortals was nature. So I don't know. I think it's going to be all turned on its head, but thinking about how this performance went, I agree with everything you said, Avast. I think version 1 is definitely bottom of the pack out of the top 18, out of all the Challengers Finals teams. Version 1 is probably bottom of the pack. Xset is mid to top tier, and the 100 Thieves and Envy are up in that top tier.
Yeah, it's so tough to say. I think one of the questions for me is what level are FaZe going to be at?
Yeah.
Because they were playing different stuff.
I feel like also we're doing
it
with the anti-Smeeg meta coming up, right? This is literally the anti-Smeeg with Viper and Astra. Imagine Baby May dashing through the Viper wall, taking 50 damage. I do think that, right? Against all odds, maybe the unstoppable force meeting the unmovable object is potentially the unstoppable force will win. But it's, I don't know. I find it highly unlikely when Baby May takes 50 damage going through the Viper wall and is vulnerable by the molly, and then he gets blown on and turns into an aerosol spray and vaporized. I don't know. So.
Yeah, that's really the main question for me, because I think one of the interesting things about the previous Challenger qualifier as well was just that the crop of teams from the second round just kind of stormed in and ended up doing really well. Sentinels made it through on the first one, but aside from that,
teams?
Immortals,
you have to pull it up to remember.
LG,
and LG, FaZe, Immortals, and
right. Yeah, FaZe definitely.
But we're in a position as well. Yeah, we're looking at hypothetically probably your on paper top 4 for this next one should be SEN, FaZe, Gen.G, LG, right?
I can't think. There's so many good teams. So but yeah, that sounds about right.
It's just so tough. I feel like we could end up in a world where SEN and FaZe are the 2 teams that make it through, depending on how good FaZe are looking.
Yeah. There's the potential for so many upsets, though, coming into the next round as well. Like, upsets will always happen, even if it's just a single tournament. We've seen it over in Europe as well, that if you miss your first opportunity, you can't guarantee that your second is going to be.
Okay, well, that was a BS. That's like, Europe is so messed up in that regard because, like, you're talking about Heretics, right?
Sure, yeah.
Heretics was literally in the Challengers tournament, and they had to replay the entire Open qualifier. It's not like they were Masters and we were trying to give them an advantage. Yeah. No, they were in Challengers. Lost in, what was it, first round against Thieves,
first round.
I want to say. And all of a sudden, they're not in. They have to play the Open qualifier from round of 128 again. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, they just got.
It is kind of wild, but I mean, that's the same situation that's going to be happening in NA as well. I mean, NA has the advantage of double elimination, which is crucial, but. Yeah, it's going to be tough. I want to talk about Sentinels a bit more, though, because there's been some information released about TenZ's situation with them. They've managed to negotiate an advancement of, like a lease, I think it's been reported as, until the end of Challengers Finals. So they will be playing with TenZ until they figure out whether or not they're going to Reykjavik, right? That's the point at which then Jack gets an additional bag. He just keeps accruing the mini bag. It's like... This to me is like, have you ever had a parent that told you, oh, always make sure you buy a used car, or don't make, it's better to buy a house than rent it. You're just wasting your money if you end up renting. I feel that's what Sentinels are doing right now. They're going to end up renting TenZ for so long that they're going to spend more money than the bloody buyout in the first place.
I do like the word leased being used in this. I don't think I've seen that in esports. Like TenZ.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's the term that they've been using in esports for a while for like for players that are under contract that are playing for a different team longer term. Yeah, I guess loan. There's also loan, but leased in this case makes more sense because you are literally paying to use it generally. You are like, I'm assuming, I find it highly unlikely that there's no way Sentinels is not paying some sort of amount to continue.
Oh, absolutely. Of course they are, definitely. Yeah. Now, there was also a report, I don't know whether you have access to it, Kurt, by George, always forget his name. George somebody, though. And he was...
He'll appreciate the shout-out.
Sure he will. I call him George because we're tight like that. I can use his first name. No, I don't know his surname because I don't know anybody's surname. Don't know Avast's surname. I don't know
Avast's first name. My surname's really easy, though.
Who knows?
It's Prince.
Prince Connor. That's his name, isn't it? He's a member of the fucking royalty. Born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Never known hardship. Got an upside-down piece of $1 million abstract wall on his... art on his wall.
First of all... I'm not quite sure if that's upside down anymore, actually. I don't know. I don't know if that's right. So I actually don't know.
You need servants to flip the paintings the correct way. I understand.
You got to straighten it, though.
Yeah,
it's a little bit
all over the place. It's wonky. Wonky. Either that or your webcam.
Like that's
wonky.
a meme format. That's
just right there. I got you. This guy's name.
From here, I think it's the webcam.
Okay,
I think it's probably more likely the webcam.
But there was. This report was talking about the situation surrounding TenZ, and I think it was a guy from Upcomer, but I could be wrong. Oh no, it was Daily Esports. Okay, yep, George Geddes. Okay, there we go. And so this was a report that had just followed after Upcomer's journalist Fion Tyler Erzberger had reported that before the VCT Stage 2. Before Masters 1, I think, his buyout was reportedly around $2 million. And then there's a paragraph here that says, his buyout could now sit at around $5 million, according to one source. Which, first of all, I want to talk about the phrasing there. If you have a journalist that specifically puts in a sentence, according to one source, that's making you, the reader, aware of the fact that information could be unreliable. Because the journalist is caveating it with, I only know this from one person, and he said could now sit at around $5 million. Like, this isn't like... The wording of it should lead you to believe that the journalist is not, like, printing their fucking seal of reputation on this. They're just saying, this is some information that I've had access to. I believe it's useful information to put out to the public, though I'm not like, I haven't got multiple corroborating reports of it. And then Jack replied, actually, I think, saying that, I think it's been updated somewhere in the article. Jack replied at some point saying, he said that the numbers were ass or something. I can't remember the exact quote. But he said that
I repeat, LMFAO.
Yeah.
Those numbers are bullshit or something.
Yeah. So nobody really has any idea about the buyout prices, but it seems like Sentinels are not willing to pay the full buyout currently.
Well, I mean, what? Very few orgs would be willing to pay that buyout in like any game. Like, that's a ridiculous buyout, and we're talking about Valorant, a game that's like a year old that still is developing. You know,
this situation is weird to me, man. Because like all this entire thing about why Sentinels had to like fully buy, like there was like that thing that Riot put out. Now Cloud9 is literally competing for qualifying for Challengers Finals in Reykjavik, and they're still able to like do this tug of war thing with Sentinels. It's just like feels like such a weird conflict of interest situation.
It feels like Riot's ruling has been completely useless in this situation. Yeah. I mean, if you can just get around it by being like, yeah, we'll lease him to you and we'll get him back. It's like TenZ is a fucking boomerang that Jack's throwing around the scene. And it's like, he's not mine, he's not mine, he's not mine. And then as soon as he grabs him again, he's like, he's Cloud9 again. And then you have to pay for him to release the boomerang again. And he's yours, he's yours, he's yours. And then it comes back and he's like, oh, no, he's back with Cloud9. That, at no point there is he actually not on Cloud9. If part of his contract is that he must return to Cloud9, he is continuing to represent Cloud9 the whole time, surely. I mean, maybe not from a legal standpoint, that might be a loophole, but the spirit of it is that he is a Cloud9 representative.
He doesn't have the Twitter header on, but...
That's all that the law looks at, actually. Twitter header.
But... It's still.
But Your Honor, I changed my profile picture.
No, but it's still. Cloud9 are just they're just sitting around and they're just collecting a nice little check and collecting free publicity every single day, and he doesn't even need to play for them. He doesn't need to do anything.
Scrooge McDuck in their way around.
Situation.
This statement made it very clear that Sentinels is thinking like end goal is Reykjavik, and anything other than that is bust type of situation, right? Most orgs are probably thinking about.
But is TenZ really required for Sentinels, right? And that's like the big question revolving around this is like, does Sentinels need to pay this much money for a player when they could potentially find another player that's really good and pay almost no money to very little money, right? Like, is TenZ absolutely required for Sentinels, especially when they have enough depth in their roster? Like, they could always put Shazam back on Jett, you know? Like, they always have options to move around. Like, they're not required necessarily to absolutely have TenZ for that Jett role. So
I know that there's some people in the scene that would rather see them pick up a Sova player as well. Like, I know Mike, that we talk to fairly frequently on our own personal streams and stuff, who was formerly, he's trialing for a coaching position in a bunch of other teams, has been very adamant on the fact that he believes Sentinels should pick up a Sova player and not a duelist player so that Shaz can go back to his original role. I don't feel as strongly about it. I feel like both options are pretty open to them. But I will say that the most recent tournament showings from Sentinels were, like, this tournament from Sentinels was so poor and sloppy. And so if it ends up being like Masters 1 was a honeymoon period of them just running around and, hitting their shots and using their fragging power to be able to dominate their opponents, and they can't replicate that again, that would be such a sad situation. But they will have figured that out by the time Challengers Finals finished. There's no world in which they still don't know whether or not to keep TenZ by the time Challengers Finals is over.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think so long as they're performing well, I mean, this sounds maybe kind of stupid, but it's just, for as long as they're performing well, and so long as they want TenZ, which it seems like they still do, both TenZ, the players, and the org seem to all want TenZ to end up on Sentinels. It will continue to be leased like a vehicle for them, and I think that they will just continue to try to keep them on the team at all costs. But I think if they fail, they'll probably look elsewhere. Honestly, at this point, I think there are definitely some really good Sovas in the scene that they could lean to. I mean, maybe just free EU from NRG. I mean, surely his buyout's lower than TenZ, and EU's a really good player that could fit that role. But
what is the likelihood, though, of Sentinels actually making it to Reykjavik at this point? It's got to be.
I mean,
it's got to be kind of low compared to where you would have them usually, because it's a grueling journey to get there with one qualification opportunity. You've got to make top 4 during Challengers 2. You've got to, there's a lot of elimination matches between now and Reykjavik for them, whereas they would have felt like slam dunk a slam dunk team to qualify at last Masters.
I do think that if they get out of opens, their chances are higher. But I think the amount of single elimination things that they have to go through in opens is like one of the roughest things.
Yeah.
Getting top 4 will probably be easier than that. Yeah, we do have the bracket.
Wait, do we?
Can we pull the bracket up? I mean, it starts tomorrow.
It starts tomorrow?
Yep.
Yeah.
Lord Almighty, I thought it started on like Thursday or something.
Infinite games to
wait.
This guy needs help. This
Tomorrow
guy's in a
This guy
Pokemon
really
fucking
needs help.
time chamber.
Tomorrow is Thursday.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Are you okay?
No.
I'm worried about you with these Pokemon streams.
I haven't been streaming Pokemon since last
He's
Monday.
not even doing the Pokemon streams. He's just so swamped in a million other things. Like it's just an incredible amount of footage to watch. I also feel like for Sentinels,
they got an easy bracket.
Dude,
they
they're
worked
good.
themselves into a corner though, because like let's say even theoretically they have him through the rest of this open qualifier. What happens after that? That like they find it's not feasible to have TenZ, like to continue paying for TenZ, even to lease them, right? Like,
they don't make Reykjavik. I think.
Well, but I mean, like then, like that's the thing, right? Like this is sort of a you got to shit or get off the pot type of situation, because like the longer you wait and don't secure it, the worse it is if it doesn't work out. You know.
You think?
So you're
I
suggesting
actually
the
think it's
buyout
almost
gets higher or something, or
no? It's more of just the fact that like they're probably currently. I'm sure right now there's a bunch of bean counters and Sentinels. They're counting beans left and right. Like how how many beans do we have to pay for TenZ? You know, and like what is it going to work out? How many interns we're going to have to cut, right, to pay for TenZ? Like how like what branches of our operation are going to have to go? What divisions are we going to lay off, right? Because at the end of the day, they're figuring out, is it feasible and is it necessary? And the longer they're deliberating on that, right, they're continuing to use TenZ, building this team, continuing to play with TenZ, right? And if it comes out later that they don't think it's going to be feasible, or they don't think that's the best option, then all they've done is continue to use TenZ this whole time in an uncertain situation, and now it potentially could hurt them even worse.
But
later.
I would say, Avast, that it's better to qualify for Reykjavik with TenZ and then need a substitute last minute and kind of flop at Reykjavik than never get there in the first place, because you go out in one of the open qualifiers now with a brand new player.
I'm thinking more just like long term for like if this is their roster they feel.
I think the reporting kind of implied that, you know, when using this term leasing and stuff like that, that they are actually paying towards a potential buyout down the line as well. So it's not like they're throwing this money out the window. If they want to buy
they've created a mortgage.
I don't know if that's
they're paying mortgage payments where every month they have to pay towards the principal, and eventually they will own 30 years from now.
That's how the word, like how I read the wording of the reporting makes it sound. But again, I completely misinterpreted the riot thing too. So who knows? Actually,
I didn't get that impression, but that would be very funny if that was the way that it was structured.
That would be the first time in esports history you've set up a payment plan to get a player. You put them on credit.
That does happen though in other aspects of esports. Like when you pay franchise fees, those are paid almost like a mortgage. You know, they don't just go like, "Let me check in my pockets for 20 mil."
Right, and they're also part of like much more interlocking agreements. Like this would be feel like a first for a player though.
As far as I can remember, but who knows?
Yeah, well.
Yeah,
maybe we have to like actually ask maybe a DM Fion or something like that and try to figure out what the heck that was about.
Yeah. Kurt, can you bring up the bracket again just for a second? Because it didn't. I couldn't see it. Could you just scroll down slightly? I just wanted to see. I can't see the full thing. Okay, so the toughest team they're going to play is like United or Spot Up.
Round at 8, that'll be qualifying. So it's even the bracket down below them that matters too.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay. So
yeah.
So they could play against Ghost.
Okay, Ghost
Noble
on the way. Noble are there.
Noble's the hardest team there.
I mean, that is a very easy bracket, to be honest.
I mean, they should qualify here.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't, that's a gargantuan failure, because we're not talking about any team that's even on the radar for qualification.
Yeah, Ghost
we're not even talking about
Envy.
BBG, really, are we? Like,
No,
I don't think I would rate Ghost as highly as I would rate BBG even. So we're talking about that would have to...
Ghosts have a sub, actually, too. Nismo can't play their best player, so never mind. They can't play.
Yeah,
they're not going to beat them.
Yeah. So, I mean, if Sentinels don't make it through Open, that's the largest upset that we've ever seen in Valorant. It just is.
Yeah. I mean, they should absolutely make it.
Here's one thing that I think probably we haven't mentioned yet is the fact that all of this TenZ stuff is happening hangs like a cloud over the players, where they're not getting optimal practice. I mean, we already saw in the last open qualifier, TenZ is going down to LA to be with what's her name, Kaide, to sign with 100 Thieves. Like in that he was not sleeping and stuff like that. They were talking about how he was affected and he played awful in those games. against BBG and the games before that, even against Sonics. Like, all of that stuff could still be ongoing where they're like, I don't actually know what's happening. Are we going to be playing with TenZ? Are we not going to be playing with TenZ? They're also thinking long term, like, how is this going to all work out? That could be a problem for them too.
It could. But again, I feel like that's the level of problem that it takes. The normal level of Sentinels is so high that even if all of those factors are in place, you're still unlikely to get upset in a bracket like this. So it would it feels like it would take a miracle for Sentinels not to make it through the opens here. But boy, oh boy, would it be
do we want to look at the rest of the bracket really quick?
Sure, yeah, let's take a quick look through the rest of the bracket while we're here.
You can just kind of speculate about
because there should be some other big names matching up at some point in the bracket,
LG NRG is the next one. That's going to be in around of 8.
Okay, so we've got LG playing against NRG. Yeah.
Cookie Koalas is in that as well, by the way. And
and Beast Coast is there too.
Yeah.
So, but it seems most likely that it would be LG NRG playing there. That's a decent game. I mean, who knows? ESIC report coming out as well.
True.
If that comes out at the same time as these qualifiers are happening.
next week or so.
Is anyone going to Reykjavik?
It's supposed to be today. Like, as far as I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be today is like the 2-week period that the guy said.
I mean, they have. We'll see.
We will do a special episode when it comes out.
Yeah.
But let's continue down the bracket as well, though. That seems like an interesting game.
Team Basilisk again. FaZe almost lost to Team Basilisk last time they played. It was in the same open qualifier, and then. That could end up being
FaZe
T1 in the round of 8.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, I feel like...
peace,
and you've got Renegades in this side of the bracket as well. And C9...
And CLG Red and C9 White.
C9 White and CLG Red. Although I don't think they're likely to match up against each other, right? Because you would favor Renegades, really.
Well, it will be C9 White versus Renegades, potentially, if C9 White beats Able.
That's a good game.
Pretty likely. They've beat Renegades before.
Yeah, that's a fun game.
I don't think we've actually seen Legs versus Mel either, which is pretty cool.
We'll see, I guess, what happens as well with Keiti.
Oh, Gen.G Complexity is within its own bracket for the round of 16.
You know, that's a team. What the hell is Complexity? Is Complexity ever going to make any moves?
They have been. They've Yeah. Click on one of the recent matches, Kurt. I just want to see who they're playing with right now. They've definitely been switching people around.
Oh yeah, J.
I mean, they've still they have J. Cruel now. Yeah, they've been making moves. They've never cracked the code. And the guy Jonah P on the team who has some good stats in this game. He when I'd watched him before, he looked really good. But yeah, Complexity they've kind of just dropped off the map for the past few months.
Two things in these upcoming brackets. Oh, actually, this one, the Gen.G one, you see with Complexity, okay? The next one is interesting though, because the round of 8, so it will be Gen.G or whoever coming out of there, but TSM okay?
Sonics.
So it could be Gen.G, TSM to qual, but it could also have TSM versus Sonics for round of 16.
That's awesome. TSM Sonics would be a fantastic game, because that really feels like it's a winnable match for Sonics that would put them on a lot of people's radar. Because TSM are still, in the public eye, are a team that could just return to tier 1 at any point, even though that doesn't seem likely now by any stretch of the imagination. But if Sonics manage to get the win, that's going to put people are going to be paying attention.
God, TSM are probably still going to have never qualified for a challenger main event.
Because they
play Gen.G.
They did Challengers 3.
Yeah, Sonics and Gen.G.
Did they make one?
Yeah, they did. They lost.
They did make Challengers. Yeah, they snuck into Challengers 3. Yeah. Okay, I guess that counted.
Okay.
Sure. I mean that counts. It doesn't. Yeah, but
we were just taking a look at Cloud9 White actually, and they've made a recent change. They've parted ways with Keiti, and people were really, really confused about this when it got announced on Twitter. I think mostly because the communication is very poor here.
I mean, they didn't say anything. They just said, "We parted ways. Goodbye, Keiti." That's it. That's all they said.
The Cloud9 classic.
Yeah. But there's speculation that she was on a 1-month contract. People were speculating that she was always just supposed to be a stand-in for Jazzykins. I mean, some people were obviously speculating that she got dropped for some kind of behavioral thing, because when organizations are this short with somebody, that can sometimes be the reason, though it doesn't appear to be the reason in this case. But overall, just a really like opaque move. Like, why don't you say something more about what the hell's going on here?
Especially since she's so good, you would think that like maybe like you'd want to try to do, even if you don't want to keep her on the team, maybe sell her to another team or something.
Maybe that's what's happening though. That could be what's happening as well.
Yeah,
and that might be why Cloud9 doesn't want to announce anything, is because another org wants to announce that they've picked up Keiti. But
that might be true.
I mean, the Challengers begins tomorrow. Hello? Anyone? You making the announcement if that is the case? What's going on here?
Yeah, it's odd. It does seem that the most likely outcome is she's just on another team now.
Right, that's what I thought.
But they haven't just standing in for Jazzy for the month, and
because Keiti's good enough to play on a tier 2 mixed roster, no problem, right?
I think Keiti's better than tier 2.
Better than that.
Yeah,
I agree.
So I'm assuming she's just going to end up on another team.
I mean, there's a lot of options, but we just don't know. We were given goodbye, Keiti, and that's all we got, and it's very strange.
If she was on a 1-month contract though, and always intended to just be a replacement for Jazzy, why didn't they say that when they signed her? Like that would just, if you sign someone and you're like, hey, we're signing Keiti as our temporary replacement or as part of a 6-person roster.
Like orgs, sometimes they like to keep their options open. So like they'll sign someone to a 1 month and say to them like, this is essentially a trial period, and we might sign you to a full contract later, or we might not. But like, I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't announce any of this like ahead of time. Because if you announce it publicly, then it changes expectations, right? Because if you say Keiti's on a 1-month contract, right, like a trial contract, then like when Keiti leaves, or like I thought Keiti was gonna get signed, or maybe like if Jazzy leaves, they'd be like, wow, I can't believe they replaced her, right? So like, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. There's all sorts of reasons. None of them really great reasons not to say anything, honestly. So
weird though, right?
I mean, yeah.
I'm just waiting for some additional information.
I'm sure she'll end up on a really good team.
Yeah, I mean, she's a great player. The other interesting news came from a Twitch clip about Brax potentially getting benched for Hazed coming into the next qualifier.
I mean, it's not. He said, "I'm not playing."
Right.
it's
But I think there's still a lot of missing information there on what TSM's actually trying to do, right? Because some people were speculating that this is Brax getting pushed out of the roster, even though Hazed had said that they wanted a proper 6-man roster where him and Brax alternated. What the fuck is going on here? And does it even matter? When do we stop talking about TSM? Huh?
Thank you. When is this now a train wreck? Is my question. When are we starting to say this is a train wreck?
Train wreck 6-man. That's what TSM stands for. that's what it's for. Gosh, I mean, I'm tired of 6-man rosters. I'm tired of 6-man rosters. We've been saying it forever. I'm tired of it. Don't like them.
I was fine with that. Like when Heretics played in the finals and they were like swapping it around and stuff, I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." But like,
they're the only team that's done
nobody's doing that, bro. Nobody. It's just, oh, we have a 6-man roster. This guy's playing this weekend. The other guy's just benched for the weekend. Never mind. We're gonna change our mind, like because Viper patch or something. I think that's what like Hayes is teasing a little bit. He was like putting snake ladies on
Viper before.
Hayes Viper was not good, by the way.
Mid-lane success, but they have yet to find any success at all with anything. Like, I mean, like, it's like you could sort of see it happening. It's like, well, like they had some success here, but they're trying this, but like it's just bouncing back and forth between two bads without any consistency. Like they just haven't found a footing with either roster.
And
so
I think the point where I'm like, okay, this is now a train wreck is the fact that all these guys are like joking about it. They're talking about it on stream. Like they're making rumors happen. Like this stuff eats at a team. Like hardcore when it's very obvious that guys are not happy, right? That stuff starts to leak into the matches 100% of the time. So
this is another one of those situations where I'd love to know who is the driving force behind some of these moves, like getting Brax specifically.
I mean, they have a coach tailored, right? I assume that he has some input in what's happening.
Sure. I mean, like how much been active as like a face in the past, just not so much recently. So,
I mean, yeah, I think this is the last chance. Otherwise, it's a wrap. I think this is it.
Yeah.
I mean, how long are we going to prolong this? Just, I mean, I genuinely I forgot that they made that other challenger qualifier because it was just completely inconsequential.
Yeah, it was. They haven't done anything the whole year.
This is it. We've been way below TSM standard for all of 2021.
I mean, they haven't even been like a team with aspirations. It's not even like they've been looking like they could punch their ticket into the top level at any point. They haven't even shown glimmers of potential. They've just been bad all year long. Am I forgetting some period of time where TSM was good? I feel like they've just been bad.
Not.
I was personally excited about the double smokes when it came out, and then they just like dropped it, and it was actually just bad anyways. So yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is the last chance though. For me. Otherwise, if they don't make it again, I mean, listen, I don't think there's any. If they, I don't even know why I would even speculate about them making Iceland. Like, there's no fucking way, right?
No,
I mean, so there's no way that's going to happen. Is there? What I'm getting at is there an acceptable threshold for success where we feel this is no longer the last chance?
Having making it out of open qualifiers and having like a decent showing potentially.
But a decent showing,
that's low, bro.
A decent showing in this challenges would be to make it to challenges finals.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
At that point, you're in top 8, and I think that with this roster, in order to make up for all the crap that's happened in 2021, you'd have to make it like 3rd place or something.
Yeah, top 3.
Like, and at that point, we're just talking about a miracle occurring. And at that point, I wouldn't even have faith that they could continue in the future because I would just put it down to like the Viper patch.
So we should just say,
if they had that kind of extraordinary outlier, I would dismiss it anyway. So they're checkmated. Yeah. There's nothing they can do to convince me anymore.
So it's just over now.
For me, I think it has been, the writing's been on the wall for a little while, and I think the team recognizes that, and I think that's why the team is like joking about it. I think it's the stages of grief. They've passed through the anger and the fighting against it, and now it's just comical how poorly they're doing. And there need to be changes now in order to regain the focus. You're a team that won half of the Ignition series, goddammit. You need to be trying to aspire to get into champions. And that means making changes immediately so that you're in a good position to either gain a shit ton of points from Masters 3 and win it so that you book your ticket in, or qualifying the last chance qualifier. Going to be happening in like October time, because otherwise you're fucked.
I mean, that we're talking about Iceland a lot, but also just gaining points to just actually make champions.
It's make or break.
By the way, is the last chance qualifier like completely open, or is it like based on points?
They haven't released any info, so I don't know.
But
I mean, Masters 3 is going to be completely open, and if you win Masters 3, you go straight to champions. So,
okay,
that's always an option, I guess. Just
win
a global
Masters.
Tournament.
Just win Masters.
Just win the mini world championship right before the world championship. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, no problem, right? No problem. Yeah, wild situation though. All right. What the heck is next? Who else has been doing dumb shit? Don't know because my phone died. What's the next topic?
Well, technically, the next one I have the list here, Josh. The next one is the gaming Pulitzer has been awarded. Supposedly, fraud, ethics, conspiracy has been the twisted threads that we weave have been unwoven, and we've learned that apparently it's all related to the what's that guy? What was his name?
Stunner. Yep.
Stunner was the new head coach picked up, and then it came out that this guy did a whole lot of cheating. This guy did a whole lot of cheating before, and then fRoD was apparently not consulted about any of these moves, and that's when like apparently a big part of their disagreement was.
It seems like they whoever was attempting to bring him in with T1, they were happy to ignore the cheating past, and that there was some potential alleged element of nepotism at play. People, they did the Twitter deep dive. They searched through the ats, they searched through the tweets, and evidently the T1, whoever it is that does the T1 recruiting or management of this team, is just previously it's established in some way that he's friends with Stunner. And
there's the fRoD post right below it.
Yep. Can confirm when org/management forced me to trial interview him a long time ago. Neither he nor T1 told me about his past. Why was that detail kept from me? So you were and fully aware of it, yet didn't disclose it to me or the team at the time? Well, that's there it is. It's finally happened. The code has finally been cracked. I think there's like 100 more fRoD tweets about this, by the way. He just went in. He just let it all go. He let it rip.
The tweet and replies is the best.
Yeah, he was replying to everyone.
Oh, right. You'll have to go to the top and click tweets and replies then.
Yeah, he was just back to...
If you go to
fRoD's page and then scroll down slightly, tweets and replies. Yeah.
All right, here's the juice.
The juice has got to be in here somewhere.
Where the heck is this?
One more. Here it comes. Yup. Boom.
Okie dokie.
Okay, I didn't see this one. Now the spice is coming. And they say they're transparent about it, but he's been hovering around T1, kissing Wawa's ass for 9+ months now. So don't buy the "were and always aware" bullshit from the shrink.
Wow.
From the shrink?
That is...
Okay.
I didn't see that one.
I mean, that's
oh my God.
That's like some real beef kind of language as well. Like
the
fucking the shrink is such a...
He called David Denny the shrink.
Like, I know that we were joking about him being an AI, but that is like...
That's fucking ridiculous.
That's fucking going hard, isn't it?
I know
that's
that's going extremely hard. Like, when you're publicly shit-talking your previous employer, you know?
Yeah.
That's
I mean, or like your replacement, I guess, right? Because that's what...
Well, it's not even... Yeah, I guess technically, his replacement. Yeah.
But that is... Yeah, that's wild. Okay, what the hell, though, is... So, my question as well is, what's the timeline here? They're talking about this happening last
August.
Last August.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that this guy's been working with T1 since August and they're happy with the improvements that T1's been making?
I don't think he's been working with them. I think fRoD was interviewing him for maybe an assistant coach position or something like that, or an analyst role or something like that, and fRoD didn't want him.
Right, but have they been trialing him since then or something? How has he been interviewed in August and he's here now? What was happening in the interim? Because my thought process is that T1 have not been successful. Even if you... The only time at which I've seen people take the PR hit of picking up people who have such a poor history within esports is if they are producing big results or they have some kind of public turnaround with their image. This doesn't seem like that's been the case, right?
No.
I don't know.
Doesn't seem like this guy's well-liked.
Honestly, this is
all
weird.
These teams are grinding so hard to have this moment where they qualify for Iceland, and because of that, everybody's just going. It's just everybody's eating each other.
But I mean, is this T1's is this their grand play?
T1's falling apart. What is happening?
I don't see this as a grand play, right, from T1. It's like, guys, we're gonna have to bring him in, and then everyone on the board's like, no, not him. Not him. He's too wild. It's like, it's the only way we make it. And then they bring in Stunner. Everyone hates it, and they're not even winning. So I'm like, what's the what's the end goal? Exactly,
yeah, where's the positive there? I suppose. But I want to kind of address the overall.
There's a lot more.
Oh,
you guys want to look at it?
Absolutely,
yeah, sure.
Kurt.
Absolutely.
Look it up, Kurt. Show it to us.
Let's see what else.
This thread's a little bit longer.
You guys are. Sorry.
This thread's a little bit longer from the same reply here.
So transparent and honest, they kept that detail from me while forcing me to try to recruit him to
by the
coaching
clown crew.
Wow.
Some Comcast damage control by the clown crew.
Jesus Christ.
Wait, look at this one. He was brought on because he's a yes man stroking Joe and Wawa's ego. That is 100%.
Who's Joe?
I don't know. That Joe's the CEO, yeah.
Right.
Who's Wawa?
Wawa is
Wawa's
the
the guy that does all the
sandwich
hiring.
shop.
He's the GM of the team. I think he used to be involved in T1 on the Overwatch side, didn't he? I feel like
he's involved in a lot of their esports.
Maybe.
Maybe
I
not.
remember that guy.
This was around August/September. I've been kissing ass since before then, and apparently transparent about his past. Yet that was never mentioned or known until now.
Yeah, I know Wawa. He's definitely like involved in a lot of their different.
Has this been confirmed then? Essentially, the threads here that like.
Wait. This is an important one. I think in the forced trial, I was forced to continue to try to work with him when he couldn't even book a scrim properly. Strat help was Twitch clips of matches I already watched. Insane innovation. Guy was a brick. But he told Wawa he's smart 24/7. So naturally, he got a job. Okay.
I'm trying to figure out exactly. So let's finally. So the final conclusion of the gaming Pulitzer here is that. So this is implied that fRoD at this point it's pretty much been said that fRoD left because of the.
Oh, he got
because of the stunner situation.
No. This is implying that fRoD didn't even know he was a cheater. He's implying that fRoD didn't want to hire this guy, so he got let go because he didn't want to hire him.
fRoD is saying he didn't want to hire him because he was a shit coach.
Yeah,
and
not because he was
this
a
is
cheater.
unrelated to the fact. So he didn't even want to hire him, not because he was a cheater, because he didn't even know. He just didn't like him, and then they fired him to replace him with this new staff. Essentially,
seems like it, right?
That's what this is.
Now, Richard Lewis is already soaking up the juice, isn't he? Look at him like a sponge.
Wait, can you go to the previous, or there was one up there. Wait. They don't even tell most of the players about it, and they don't even make an announcement. I mean, we even did a guide with Mobalytics. What? Never once has anyone at T1 contacted any of the players who made the guide about how to collect. Okay.
Don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
That sounds like some shit where like an org sets up an event and it's a shit show. So that's classic org stuff.
Sure.
So that's just classic org stuff.
This feels like as well though that I feel like there is a world in which they just weren't happy with what fRoD was doing. Yeah. And so this entire perspective from fRoD, if fRoD is bad at recognizing talent within Valorant, immediately it makes sense from T1's point of view. Like, if Stunner is actually a genius, but fRoD just couldn't see it, and he didn't want someone like... He didn't enjoy working with him for whatever reason, and so they were like, well, you're being difficult. We can tell that he's talented. Let's put him in. Like, there is a world in which it makes sense from T1's point of view, but it just comes down to whether or not you feel like fRoD should have been given the authority to make those decisions, or whether the staff should have.
And then also,
there's the whole ethics about him being a cheater on top of that. Like,
and also just having I mentioned this when you stepped away, but there were people bringing up like tweets of him already being in contact, like basically presenting that it seemed like he had a prior relationship with T1 before Valorant even came out. I believe that he was in contact with some of the people in some way that they were.
But I mean, to be fair, that's just how jobs, particularly orgs, work. It's like more often than not, you get the job because you are, they know you from doing something somewhere, and like you're able to just like establish that connection. That's just sort of how it works.
Yeah, it seems like
there's so much in Valorant and CS in terms of like coaching and talented people and just in general. Like this is not something that's you're just pulling people who
Yeah.
But it also, I mean, it seems like it came down to a large disagreement about how much authority he was actually supposed to have within the team, fRoD. Yeah. Like how much of the project was his to run. And
my thing is, no matter like which perspective, like the fact that this happened over 8 months or whatever, this the second half of the 2020 year, the fact that it's happening that entire time means that your players are probably hearing about this from their coach, like how he's kind of getting like messed around, and like they're like, who's this other guy, the Stunner guy, and blah 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 blah. Like this could be an answer to why T1 has been so bad the entire time. Remember, I'm talking about like Sentinels having this cloud looming. Like this is something that's really messing with you, no matter what, because this has implications on personnel, people who are getting cut. This has implications on your actual strats in the game that your coaches are bringing to the table. Like this is everywhere. This is deep.
But also, when you look at how the players, I know this might be the wrong way to think about it because it was a video made by T1, so of course they're not going to make themselves look bad. But they had a video recently where they were talking about David Denis as their head coach and how Scar and Automatic, was it those two actually?
Yeah.
Had worked with him in the past as a mental coach, like a performance coach, right? And they were talking about how he had kind of come into being the head coach role, and they had pre-existing relationship with him and that kind of stuff. So my outside perspective is that it doesn't really seem like the players were like back in fRoD and distraught that he was gone and stuff, it kind of seems like they're on board with the direction that T1's going.
Or at least some of the players.
Yeah, or at least some of them.
Because we don't really
I still don't understand how this connects to the fRoD ethics, because so when he announced he had left and he said it was over ethics, he didn't even know at the time that Stunner was a cheater when he made this announcement.
I don't think so.
What were the ethic difference?
I think
what was he mad about?
I think he was mad about being forced to pick somebody up that he knew was awful because of what he perceived to be nepotism. Like, it's just pure cronyism from his point of view. If he believes that Stunner is shit at his job, then he's just being forced to pick up an assistant coach via cronyism that he doesn't want to pick up. And his authority is being completely removed. And he's basically, at that point, you're just a puppet to the org above you. I think is his point of view, probably.
I mean, personally, though, when I look back, when you make a public statement like that, like ethics, like it's a very harsh statement, right? And it's not that cronyism or nepotism isn't bad, right? But I feel like if you're going to make a statement saying I've left because of ethical differences, that's a really huge indictment of your previous employer, you know? And some potential nepotism there, even if it's like, you know, obviously like maybe it's a really bad case of it, doesn't necessarily, I feel like, warrant the like a level of like nuke he went on Twitter, right?
It's
like,
also fRoD is this type of guy though to try, like, not to just have very, very structured principles. Like, I've seen him pop off on like ESL in the past for like their league decisions and stuff like that in ESCA. And just in general, like,
yeah,
this is the type of he's very headstrong in terms of like what.
Because if he had known Stunner was a cheater, I would understand it, right? Because it's not just the getting forced to pick up, but also getting forced to pick up someone that was like a known cheater that ruined competitive integrity. I can totally understand it then.
He might not have known when he trialed him in August, but he might have known when he got let go at Christmas.
Oh, that's probably true.
So
yeah,
when
but
he
said, but he was talking about
it,
in April, though. He said, like, from the sound of his tweets, it sounded like this was all revealed to him in April, along with the rest of us.
No, the April he's talking about is right now.
Right? Oh, okay.
Because it is April currently.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, is that he learned with the rest of us. We learned
a whole year thing?
I don't know.
I was like,
he trialed him in August. He was forced to trial him in August. He got let go in Christmas. He tweeted around Christmas time. The world finds out in April. I'm not sure at what point fRoD found out that this guy had a cheating past. It feels like his tweets like he was ready for this announcement, you know?
Okay,
so I feel like he might have known about it as he got released. But also, why then? Dude, I don't understand it. Like, why the fuck did it take him from August to Christmas to end up getting released? And why was this still the primary issue at the time?
I feel like the gaming Pulitzer has not been solved. I feel like there's still unanswered questions.
It's been teased. It seems like Richard Lewis is determined to get your gaming Pulitzer, though. He's already slipped into the DMs.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, because I think there's still, in my mind, there are a lot of questions remaining in regards to the timeline, how this, in what way did this impact AZK and Brax no longer being on the team, because we don't really know what happened there. All we know is that Brax is the best player in the world, but they let him go. So we don't actually know what happened. That's what they said in the video that they released him in.
Yeah.
So we don't actually know what happened there. In what way did any of this potentially have impact, or in another set of circumstances, the coaching role have any impact there? I don't know.
God, that's so funny.
So there's a lot of information in regards to all of that. I still even have questions about exactly what was going on with them leaning into getting Spider, and even looking now at this year and just the absolute. I mean, they're in the same boat as TSM. These are the two. They're in a similar situation. This team is a mess, and there are a lot of questions as to what's going on behind it. Because, as far as it seems, their best run. I'm not saying that this is due to fRoD exclusively, but their best run was like around First Strike time. That was their best performing time when Skadoodle was on Jett.
Sure, yeah.
That was when they were at their best, and everything, unless you want to talk about beta, but before then, like late Ignition series and everything past it, has just been quite the mess.
Yeah.
So what's going on now? What are they trying to do to solve it? Is Stunner gonna? How long has Stunner been working with the team now?
Exactly.
Has he been working with them for 2021? Because if so,
Probably, right?
Uh-oh. I mean, that's kind of worrying.
Well, I mean, if fRoD was officially gone in December, I mean, he literally had to have been working, like, surely, right? I guess.
Probably.
So many details.
I was so confused when you guys brought this topic up, and I'm like, reaches its climax, conspiracy. What the hell are you guys talking about?
Yeah,
and I'm just now noticing, by the way, the disrespect thrown on fRoD's name there, the wacky spelling you got there, Kurt.
No,
this guy's a legend, by the way.
That's how he spells it, dude. That's how he spells it.
Come on, it's the R's capitalized, the D's capitalized. This guy's a legend. Trust me. I've
That's
watched
what we did.
Every single demo. Beautiful,
wasn't it?
Come on.
I can't remember. I thought it was.
I had it correct, but then I clicked it again and it fixed itself the wrong way.
It
was correct for most of the.
But yeah, I was so confused, and now it all makes sense. Like, you guys have been following this for a long time.
It doesn't make any more sense. It doesn't make any more sense. I'm just as lost as I was before.
Yeah, no, Paul, you don't understand. But this story's been tracking since like episode 6.
We are like bloodhounds.
We've been far before you joining the show.
I'm caught up.
Has anything else happened
I know
this
who
week?
David Denis is now. I know like all this crap. All makes sense.
I have one more question before we move on, though. One more question.
Uh-huh.
If someone's cheated and they go into a staff position, surely that's not as bad as someone with a cheating pass going into a player position.
Sure, I would say it seems to me we've seen in the past cheaters who no longer cheat and the community accepts them and other players accept them, etc. This doesn't seem like one of those situations.
Okay, all right, Kurt's giving me a hint.
Looks like the PUBG guys are not very thrilled about this.
No, not particularly thrilled. Right, what is the next topic, Kurt? I don't have my list, so I can't move people on. I've just got to go by the lower third god.
Yeah, Avast is the new host.
Avast.
Yes, I mean the next topic. So with that a thrilling conclusion, we're talking about another thrilling conclusion. FBX has won the challengers, and they beat Guild in the grand finals. And I know at that moment Josh coomed. I know at that particular moment I heard it. In fact, it was heard around the world. So when Josh was sitting there watching the NA games, and I heard just just across. So yes. FBX Guild, huh? Some crazy stuff.
There you go. That's the first.
Nobody's gonna say it.
That's the first.
The
momentum was building.
The momentum was definitely building.
Listen, the momentum built, and here you go. I don't even know whether. No, I don't know. Let's be fair. This does count as a major title within Europe. It had all of the best teams in it. They had a big qualification process. It's a like $50,000
tournament,
$50,000 tournament, something like that, right? So yeah, this is the first major title that FPX have ever gotten, and they feel like a team that's been perennially at the top. I mean, they've been top 2 for forever, it feels like, and they've finally won. They defeated some decent teams on their way here, but they didn't actually. I mean, it was a very different feel from Masters. You had a SEN going out in the quarterfinals. You had Heretics going out even before that as well, or not before that, sorry, but also going out in the quarterfinals. So this was the best bracket that you could have asked for if you're FPX. I mean, the team that pushed them the hardest was Opportunists, semifinals.
Yeah, I've been waiting for the day for FPX to win a tournament. This one didn't bring me the satisfaction I so desired.
I'll say this. I think that they still need to win Challengers finals to feel like they are solidly the best team in Europe. But I mean, even if they make top 2 in Challengers finals, I think that's still a great result for them, because at this point, it's all just about qualifying for Reykjavik, right? Mm-hmm. That's what everybody really cares about. But like I said earlier on, FPX they are so focused right now. Talking to their coach, I've been talking to Doom Bros a little bit, and some of their other staff and stuff. They are laser focused on their goal that is before them, which is getting through this grueling European format. There's no double elimination, so if you slip up, you're out. There's also no there's not even like 8 spots in Challengers final, the same way that North America has for the EU teams. It's only 4 teams that make it out of the whole of Europe into Challengers finals, and then 2 of those at max are going to make it to Reykjavik, depending on whether they can get past the Turkish and the CIS teams. So that shit is punishing. Punishing.
Yeah. It's even worse that, like I said before, if you if you make playoffs, you don't get to do what NA does, where for example, like who's the team that didn't make it? Like BBG, for example, got knocked out in the first 2 games. They get to play in the qualifier or in the main event next weekend. Like they get to do that. Meanwhile, the guys NIP had to replay through the qualifier. Everybody else who didn't make it, top 2, had to replay through an open bracket. So it's even more punishing.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. But I want to talk a bit about FPX and what they've been doing here as well, because they're the first team that I've seen in the whole of Valorant, actually, who've started integrating 2 or more different comps that they can run on a map and just choose between them. They've got this kind of look for their Ascent, where they've been moving Angel over to the Reyna, and they've also been playing Angel on Phoenix a little bit, who was previously their Omen player, their smoker. And it looks like a totally different look for their team. And at any point, I feel like they could just go back to playing the Zero Duelist comp, which is what they were previously playing on this map, and just throw a whole different look at you. They've been doing the same stuff on some of their other maps too, where they can just throw 2 utterly different looks. Like they had Shadow playing Sky and Shadow playing Breach on their split, and now they've been running Angel on Astra alongside.
They've had Angel on
too.
Viper on Icebox.
Yeah.
Angel's been playing literally everything. He's just picking whatever character comes to mind.
He is. And he looks like a freak as well. I keep having to repeat it, but this guy's aim is bonkers. It's so much better than it was in CS. I went back and I looked at some of his games in CS because I didn't follow him religiously in that game. But I had heard a lot of people talk about how, his aim wasn't that good in CS. Maybe the rest of Europe just can't aim as well as the CS aimers were, and that's why Angel's doing so well. There's a big difference. Something about the way that Valorant works just gelled with this guy. I don't know whether it's like the difference in mechanics or stopping speed or whatever, but some small difference there. Or maybe it's just the added motivation. This guy fucks.
I think it's the motivation, the rejuvenation, sipping from the fountain of youth, and having the ability to... He was just... Where he left off in CS, which was in constant roster hell, just never able to solidify something for the longest time with Hellraisers, and kind of always just being on the cusp of the top level. Being able to switch over, I think it's just being able to switch over to a new game and having a fresh start. I think that's just the motivation
being
required
at the
for a
top.
lot of these guys.
That should push you. Yeah, for sure. Compare that to like the NA teams who are complete turmoil. Even though they have a fresh start, that's not the motivation. It's crazy. The other thing too is they unlocked Zipon. Dude, this guy is insane. This guy is so unbelievable. Like every map he's dominating, and then Icebox in the guild final.
Unreal.
What is that, bro?
He broke records.
He shut down Yassine every single round, it felt like. And Yassine is potentially the best or one of the best entryers in the world. Like, and he shut him down so many times. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's also interesting as well because Zipan has pretty much just been playing. I mean, for the majority of his career, it was just a raise one trick. As soon as he moved over to playing Duelist in early beta, he just played Raze, and that was his job. I mean, that's not a great clip there. That's a fucking whiff on the first guy that came in.
Still won the round, bro. He's still won the round.
But he just started recently for last Masters, picking up the Sage and playing that a little bit when they were playing no duelist comps on Haven and on Ascent. Yeah. And now he started the map that we're talking about here, where he dropped 523 ACS, the highest I've ever seen. I don't believe that there's ever been higher in a pro match. I think he broke the record.
Not in the main events. Yeah.
He played Reyna and he just shit on everyone. He was just like, "Oh yeah, duelists are actually kind of fun."
Pretty good. It just seems like everyone in all the roles on the team are clicking right now, though. Like I think Shadow has had an excellent 2021 overall. I've been really impressed with Shadow. He was actually one of the players that I was a little bit worried about where he would fit into the team late last year.
If Breach moved out of the meta or something?
Yeah, what was going to happen with Breach, some of the op changes. There are just a few things that led me to thinking like, okay, well, I wonder what his place will be on the team. But he's been amazing all year. He's been incredible. And also, FPX are just, there's some realm that Dimisic exists in where he is both an excellent lurker and incredible at finding timings, but also the team just sets him up so well to be able to find mid-round impact kills just on the lurk. He is. I mean, it feels like everyone in their roles at the moment. It's just perfect.
Yeah. Previously, I've thought for a while actually that the one role that North America was quite significantly ahead of Europe in was Cypher, specifically with people like Dapper. But then there was like a range of good Cypher players that were underneath that within the North American region, and I think that it's only recently that Europe has gotten to that level where you're seeing the level of value that somebody like Dapper brings to a team getting replicated by people like Dimasic and like Safe as well, where they are just providing enormous value to the rest of their team. They're so active. They are pushing for information and not just turtling and playing off their own utility. They're being able to crack open sites for their team on offense. On defense, they're so solid. And playing the information game perfectly as well. People like Pora deserve to be put up in that mention too. It's been a massive shift recently, and it was something that we had questions about FPX for, because we didn't really realize at the time that was an area that they could grow in when they had Meadow on this roster. But Dimasic has changed the way that these guys play for the positive so much.
I think it's just disgusting for this roster in particular because they're on another level when it comes to the utility usage. Like Europe in general is really, really good. And I think like kind of leagues ahead of most, like every region just about in terms of like how they set up their team and how they use utility and how they do that to like pressure different areas of the map. You know, let's take a mid control after we pressure the extremities, right? Let's do like all these different things that they're able to vary up. But FPX just does it with so many different compositions and so consistently, because like sometimes you have teams with great utility, just like one match will just play and they just forget. They just kind of forget that, oh yeah, we need to like pressure for orbs. We need to break walls, you know, like, but FPX just does it consistently every single time. And I think that's like the real big thing for this team and why they're so exciting to me. It's not just because they're dynamic, but the you know, bringing back Wyatt's fountain of youth, but sort of even greater than that, the philosopher's stone of esports is yet another like some sort of, I don't even know what that goes under. It's not cryptozoology, it's whatever the hell it is, but like whatever fantasy science that might be, but like it's alchemy. It's alchemy. That's what it is. It's alchemy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
okay,
that's what it is.
Right.
But consistency is the most, in my opinion, the thing that every team chases at the top level, and it's like the one thing that is going to make a team great, not just good, but great, is consistency. And so far, FPX is the only team recently to demonstrate insane consistency at the level of their play.
Yeah, I mean, FPX also have had some like thoughts about whether or not they're going to choke in big moments and that kind of stuff. But I think there is something to be said about the fact that they consistently make it deep in tournaments over and over again and always look like they have an opportunity to win. But if we're going to talk about consistency, I think we should talk about Heretics too, because that is a team who won First Strike, almost won Masters 1, and they're already eliminated from Masters 2, from Reykjavik entirely. I mean, we're talking about NA hasn't even begun Challengers 2 yet, and Heretics are already out. That's madness, absolute madness. And it comes off the back of them losing to Opportunists.
And it was a good game too. It wasn't even a bad game. It was like Opportunists just look good. They did really look
very good. Can we take a look at the matches though? If you just click on the sorry, no, I mean the maps. My bad. So if you look at their split, I'm not exactly sure why Heretics keep opting into split now that Nisau's not with the team, because I think Nisau's Reyna was a huge part of why they were so good on that map. The information plays that he would go for was pretty crucial for them, and I don't think they've quite integrated Rubino, but they still get the win here, and Opportunists are a good split team, so that's not too bad. Haven, this is the first time that Team Heretics have ever lost on Haven. They had the longest map winning streak of any team in the entirety of Valorant. They were 30-0 on Haven. That's longer than Vision Strikers on Split. We're talking insane consistency at the tier 1 level on this map, and they lost it for the first time ever here. And it just felt like they couldn't get going. They were really struggling to deal with their like attacking sides couldn't get off the ground, and they just kept getting caught by the Phoenix Jett play that was coming out from Opportunists, which is a very weird thing to say, because normally Team Heretics have this excellent default that's so good at catching aggression. And this game, they just kind of flopped it. They weren't able to get off the ground particularly. Also helps that Opportunist won both the pistols, but it didn't feel like a normal performance from Heretics at all. It felt like it lacked confidence a lot of the time. Like they weren't going for the same kind of aggressive map control plays.
We watched like the tail end of the Ascent game, and that was like immediately the thing that we were saying. It's like they just aren't taking control. They're not playing with confidence. You don't see like anything from Nuki. Lao's also playing. We were like, Lao's playing Phoenix instead of Sage on the map. Yeah, that was the story of the series the entire way around, and yeah, I can't believe it.
I mean, this Lao Phoenix is very weird, right? That's incredibly odd.
The strangest part of this. I mean, especially on Ascent.
Yeah, you're gonna play Raze Phoenix on Ascent. It's very weird,
but also just, I think we were talking about this a little bit last week. Maybe. Just his Sage is so crucial to how they play defense. I feel, and their defense is always it's stellar on the map, and so much of it to me comes down to the way he's able to control the extremities on Sage. He's going to proactively take them and hold them using the utility very well.
Yeah. And it felt like,
I think this might be like a little bit of the same thing that I was saying with like FaZe on how they fell flat, and because of that they feel the need to reinvent themselves. I feel like with Heretics is even further taken because they don't have Nisao anymore. So it's like they have to have some value out of Rubino on the maps that Nisao was playing, or the maps that Polar wasn't playing and whatnot.
But the weirdest part about that narrative, which I think does definitely make sense, is that they lost on the maps where Nisao doesn't even normally play.
Yes.
They lost on Haven, which they never lose on, and then they lost on Ascent, which it's not been the greatest map in their pool, but it certainly hasn't been the worst either. It looks like a super solid map for them usually. And yeah, this idea of them trying to reinvent themselves after Masters didn't really end up working out. And I don't know what it is, but they got punished incredibly hard for this, because they lose to Opportunists, who are probably like the fourth best team. No, maybe fifth best team.
We had them at fourth when we did our ranking, so
sure.
Yeah.
Fourth or fifth best team in EU, and then they also lose to G2. And I think it bears talking about the G2 game as well, because G2 have just picked up a new analyst, Rojo, I think his name is.
Yeah, Lucas Rojo. Spanish guy.
Yeah. He's already been having a lot of beef with people on Twitter, but
yeah, he has. Yeah, for unknown
reasons. That is funny.
But they've also been playing with Aussie as a stand-in, as an IGL, and my God, do they look better? That G2 Heretics game, they actually look like a rejuvenated G2.
Well, they've one direction they've gone in that I'm happy to see.
I love this Astro Wall.
It is ridiculous.
Dude, I mean, fuck that Astro Wall.
But that's the thing. Flashing through it and running through it.
That's a good Astro Wall. That's them using it on the defense as a good wall for them to just flash through. But it just simplifies the entire round. I fucking doesn't matter.
There was two there. I don't even think you even realized there was two. They were sandwiched in between. There was the good offensive one and the good defensive one.
God, fucking hate it.
I was gonna
go on, continue.
Sorry,
please.
go ahead, Wyatt. Sorry.
I was gonna say. No, I was just gonna say one change that I'm very happy to see is Patty Tech on the original role from back in the day, back playing the duelist. He was just looking excellent. He was providing immense impact from that role.
He won the Mike's box. I mean, he just won the Mike's box.
He was just slamming.
He was a freak.
I'm glad to see that change. That was something that I was hoping to see at some point, if not just for the sake of experimentation, because that team is filled with players who can play a variety of roles. And he was nasty when he was playing duelist before. So I think that this is a pretty nice change. I like that.
I don't understand how the map pool got to this place, though, because again, think about where Heretics are at. Nisao is gone, and they have to reinvent themselves on Split and Icebox. Those are the two maps that Nisao played. And yeah, they lost on Ascent and Haven to Opportunists, but why would you want to go to Split and Icebox preferentially? They banned Bind because G2 have historically been good on Bind, but they're not even that great on it at the moment. And then Haven gets removed from the map pool, and now you have got to win without Nisao's Reyna Or, he was playing Raze on Icebox most recently too. But you have to win without his duelist on those 2 maps, and they just couldn't get across the finish line. They didn't have the punch power to be able to get past them on Icebox. It was still a mega close game with Patatek playing out of his mind.
They had to have been feeling confident. Like, generally, if it's a map, especially with map pools when there's so few maps for teams to worry about, the only reason you're going to go to these maps is because it's like something they did in scrims they felt confident in, Yeah. Like, it has to be like they felt, because legitimately versus probably another team other than how G2 were playing, like, especially their Icebox, they probably would have won. Like, Paro was playing really well. Like, they were doing a really good job. Like, I kind of think that, like, this was like they were doing well in scrims with these compositions, especially for Icebox, and they felt confident taking him to the map. So, like, that's the only explanation that ever makes sense, right? Is like they had success in scrims and they feel like they can win it now.
Sure. Yeah, I think though that this match was extremely exciting. I mean, you've got all of the narratives of Heretics being the ones that upset G2 in first strike and began this downward spiral for G2 as they just pivoted into a team that wasn't really able to make it deep. They weren't at the top of Europe anymore. And now that they've changed their roles around and changed their style too, because they were playing with the confidence in this match to make really aggressive info plays. And that was what defined G2 when they were winning all of the Ignition Series events, was that on defense, they would just solo push or double push re-clearing areas. Like, if you use a bunch of utility to take B main on split, for example, G2, if they don't hear anything for the next 20 seconds, are going to try and re-push that area, whether it's with utility or by double contact re-clearing it. And they stopped doing that because they ran into teams like FPX and Heretics who would just hold and wait for them to do that. And now it seems like they've found a much better way of doing it, where it's based on other hard reads that they get around the map. And that's what I noticed in this game too, was that G2 were making hard fucking reads of Heretics. They were stacking 4-5 players on the site that Heretics were going to hit based off one read of like where an alarm bot was getting put. Like, that shit is fucking mental.
Did you see that trip?
The trip on the tree outside the map. It's pretty silly.
It is good.
Okay.
I mean, Pith had an insane first map as well. Playing very well. Yeah, it's cool to see
how
G2
lucky we are to have gotten to watch this game. Sorry to interrupt you for like the 1,000th time. Like, why? Sure. But we are so lucky. This was not going to be broadcasted. This is literally not going to be broadcasted, and we get all these open qualifier broadcasts. And it's like one of the best games that we could have asked for. It's so good.
I would have lost my fucking mind if Heretics got knocked out and it wasn't broadcast. That would have just been insane, wouldn't it? It's just madness.
Yeah, it is great that we finally get to see these matches.
But yeah, props to Europe for for getting rid of the BO1s and for making more games be streamed. Now double elim is the only thing that's really missing to make it a great format rather than a good one.
We finally got to see Liquid as well.
Yeah,
finally.
And Liquid were nice. I actually liked watching Liquid. Yeah. Not gonna lie. I actually enjoyed watching Liquid. Yampy was trolling.
He was actually trolling though. He was literally trolling. I was kind of molding because the man was smeeging, and it wasn't like a good kind of smeeg. It was all fucking over the place.
But he still owned. He still owned. His stats versus NIP were crazy. Like, he still fucking owned even while trolling. Yeah.
I mean, let's go through some of the games that we saw in Challengers 2 then as well, because the big teams to take a look at in Challengers 2, I mean, not only do you have like the big shooters, so the only two teams that qualified, remember, from Challengers 1 were FPX and Guild because they made the finals. All of the other teams, we're talking Ascend, we're talking Opportunist, NIP, Fnatic, Liquid, G2. These teams are all trying to get those last 2 spots in Europe. It's fucking barbaric out there. It's crazy. And this bracket looks stacked. Like, outrageously stacked. Who do you guys want to talk about first?
Before we start talking about teams, the crazy part about the whole thing about 2 teams making it through is none of these guys, if they don't make it, get any challengers points.
Yeah.
None. 0. You have to make challengers final to get any points at all towards champions at the end. So that is crazy.
I know. It's wild.
I'll pose a first question.
Okay.
What is our level of confidence for Ascend to be able to make it?
Okay, I think they beat Vitality. I think that they are able to get through that game. Ascend, though, have not been performing Ascend have not been performing to the same level as they did in Masters 1. And that has been pretty evident in all of the matches that they've played recently. But I think we all kind of knew that that would be the case after their Masters 1 run. It's the reason that we didn't rate them as like the #1 team in the world or whatever. They popped the fuck off. And the question to me becomes, is that something they can bring back to every big game? Are they big game players? Or was this a bit of a flash in the pan? Or did the rule changes hurt them slightly? But I think that they can definitely make it to the semis. And then you've got a banger of a match. I'm assuming it's going to be them against G2, but Fnatic could make it, to be honest. And I think it's anybody's game at that point.
I feel like this is one of those situations where the story is just going to dictate who wins, and G2 are just destined to make it through and make Iceland against all odds.
Yeah.
That is my feeling. That is not based on anything but the narrative, though. The narrative would be too powerful.
So you're saying if TSM do it as well, then all of a sudden
imagine for all the OG teams, they resurge. TSM, T1, G2, they're back. Everyone, the average age of the server is 40 years old. We're winning. Don't worry. But I mean, it's kind of hard not to predict G2 based off their look, though, over Ascend. Like legitimately. Like, I would think Ascend would beat Vitality. I would think G2 would beat Fnatic. But, who knows? It's Europe because all the teams are really good.
Yeah, Fnatic is also making a resurgence, too, with their 2 new players. Like, I'd almost rate the honeymoon type-esque thing that they, like, went through this open bracket with 2 new players and made it here pretty highly. Like, in comparison to G2, who's been kind of middling, and they really haven't made too many, like... I mean, I guess Aussie could also be a similar thing, so... I think it's going to be a really, really tough match to predict. I am still confident for Ascend, though. I don't know why. I do know why. I just think that they're a good team, and all those players are really, really good. And they're consistently going to give teams trouble. They've already beaten Vitality, so I don't see them struggling there. And then, to me, G2 and Fnatic, while, yes, they're all of a sudden having a resurgence, that is going to be their first test against Ascend.
Well, let's talk about this first as well, because I'm not even sure that G2 are going to make it through the quarterfinals, if I'm honest. Like, I think I would predict G2 to make it, but I don't think this is a slam dunk case that they're going to definitely make it through. When I watched G2 play against Heretics, it just felt like they had a phenomenal read on how Heretics wanted to play. And even that, they like squeaked the 2 maps out ahead of them. It was still a close series that they managed to win with their players being on fire. Fnatic have looked really interesting with their 2 new additions of Durka and Magnum. I don't know whether you guys have got to see them, but Durka is putting up really good stats, and you can still tell he's got room to grow. He's still like a rough player. They haven't thoroughly integrated him into the team, but he has a large amount of fragging power, and he's taken over that entry role from Doma, which means that now you have an entry duo of Durka and Doma, which is really strong firepower-wise. If you're going to put Doma into the secondary position, you better fucking be good. And Durka's good. Once they actually refine him a bit more and get him fully integrated and get him making all the micro plays that they want, and his teamwork's great, I think this guy's got huge amounts of potential.
I haven't seen a lot of Fnatic, honestly, the new Fnatic, so I don't have like a ton of input yet for new Fnatic. So I'm going to take your word on it.
I can tell you that they don't insta-ban Ascent anymore, so that's positive for their map pool.
That's good. Yeah,
they've been banning Split instead, actually, and they've been running Durka on. He plays the Jett for them when they play Ascent, but Durka also plays the Sova for them when they play Bind, because they've still been playing that old Bind comp, which means that Durka needs to learn Sova for Bind, and also Magnum. He plays Cypher on most maps, but he's now having to learn Sky for Bind. So it's like Fnatic on most of the maps where they're not amazing have said, we're going to work around our new additions. And on Bind, where they were amazing, they're like, no, fuck you. We know how to play Bind. You play like us, which I think is a good way of going around it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I mean, if you have the perfect recipe, you're not going to change it suddenly. Like when you already have it, when you have the secret formula, the Krabby Patty formula ready for Bind, there's no way that you change it. Since with 2 new players,
fair, their bind was why they ended up they did lose their bind when they lost their first last 2 times, or what is it, 3 times in the last couple challengers. So.
Yeah, it hasn't been indestructible like it has been in the past. Also, Magnum is the most TikTok cypher you've ever seen. He's
just wild.
He does dances or what? I'm confused here.
Like crazy one ways, buying the Odin every round if he can for wall bangs. He's trying to like get tags and wall bang people through Ascent walls. He's got like crazy setups for these one-way cages on retakes and shit. Like the dude is playing a very different style to the best ciphers at the moment, but it's more like how Taimu or Steel try and play the agent a bit, where it's based on getting big value out of weird traps and stuff.
Yeah,
but it's cool. It's fun to watch.
Looking at the lower bracket as well, I guess how are you feeling about Liquid's chances? And then also, it seems that the Opportunist NIP match might be happening a little bit too early in this bracket to be a quarterfinal game. But I suppose
I'm actually feeling not bad about Liquid's chances.
Yeah.
After seeing their last match, I legitimately, like when I saw their NIP match, they looked good. They looked really good. And Cryptix was having a banger too during that match as well. So like they look to be firing, and Yampy, like I know obviously I feel like I haven't seen Yampy do like the 100% power yet even. Like Yampy legitimately was trolling at points in that match. Like it was like legit, he was going for knives. It happened in the match. Like and so maybe he's saved up to like the final forgive me master, but just this once I'm gonna have to go all out type of situation.
Yeah.
But I actually feel good about Liquid. I really do. Do I think they're necessarily gonna beat? Because I think it's more than likely they'll end up playing whoever wins opportunities in NIP, and then both of those teams will have a pretty good read on them because they've seen footage of them by now.
Yeah.
And that's a tough matchup, but like I actually feel this is probably the most confident I felt about Liquid in a long, long time.
I mean,
for sure
they have the easiest bracket, right?
Yeah.
Like of any of the teams here, the only one I would confidently put money on that they're going to the semis is Liquid. And that's not because Liquid are the best team here. Oh, I mean, maybe I would say Ascend too, but Vitality is no pushover, whereas I really just don't know anything about CE calling. I don't know anything about them. They're just they're a German team that's been doing pretty well in this qualifier, but I haven't seen them before. I don't think they're really on the radar as being a top EU team.
Who knows? Maybe they could be yet another EU team that emerges as like some amazing team.
They did beat G2 in the previous challengers, like the one just last week or whatever it was. So they beat them 2-0. So that's just like some information that might help you a little bit form some sort of opinion. But yeah. I'll give Liquid over CE, but I don't see them beating Opportunists, and I think that's the matchup that they're going to get. If they do get an IP, I feel like they can go toe to toe against that, but it's going to be a hard match. Opportunists though, no. NIP's been looking a lot weaker than I had them at Masters, after Masters even though they had a disappointing showing there. They had one game in Challengers 1 that I was like, damn, this is like some good stuff, but then all of a sudden they just like flopped again.
Yeah, I think they've still got a lot of holes in how they play. Like their attacking sides seem extremely readable as well. The way that Kukos plays is still right up at the front, like trying to I don't know, play like a duelist. he's very odd in the terms of how he plays.
In that Victor skill.
Yeah.
It feels like he's like legit micro controlling everything, and that's one of the reasons why he's always making these plays.
Yeah, and that's always going to be more unreliable because one guy's brain cannot power an entire team. That's not a feasible work. It's not a feasible solution. Because also, then the entire team is only playing as fast as you can com. Like you have to talk everything and like guide everybody through what they're supposed to do. That's not going to be a feasible way of playing. I was really interested though to see what Liquid were up to, because word on the ground from FPX's coach, not from scrims, just from what they've been seeing from watching them, he was predicting that Liquid and G2 are going to be the two teams to win this entire, or make it through this bracket. And part of the reason for Liquid was that they had the easier bracket, but also because Scream is playing Phoenix now. They have Yampy on Jett, and that's just making a lot of space for Scream on Phoenix to do his thing. And he's been turding on people. He didn't really turn up that much in the Alliance match.
When has that phrase entered the vernacular?
Turning on people?
When is turning
I've
on
never
people?
heard
Enter the
that
vernacular.
in my life.
I'm fine with that.
I mean, why
Keep it
not?
going.
Poo,
Let's go.
noun, pooing, verb.
It was unexpected. It was unexpected for me.
Turd, now, turding, verb. Very, very common.
Keep the point going.
I can't remember the point.
Going.
What was the point?
I don't know.
Scream shitting on people's chests, I think was the point.
Some secret info.
Yeah, anyway. No, it wasn't that secret, but what I'm saying is that the feeling within the European scene, even from some of the other teams, is that Liquid have found a style that works for them. And it's about empowering Scream through like when you're on your attacking sides, having Yampy just doing dumb shit when he goes in and making space for Scream, and so it doesn't really matter how much value Yampy generates. And then when Yampy's AWPing, that's when I most like what he's doing, as we just watch him die there, just walking up a
every
shot.
time.
Angle.
Dude, the thing is,
Die.
I am so unconvinced in Yampy's decision-making in this game, and yet they've still found a way to generate value from him, because most of the time when he AWPs on attack, he's just holding these really passive angles, holding angles for Scream to walk up on Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And that just means that Scream has less shit to worry about because he's got an AWP holding one angle for him. He doesn't have to worry about that. He just focuses full attention on one place. I click head. That's a good way of setting Scream up for success.
So I didn't get to watch too much Liquid. So I want to ask, like, you're describing the way that Jampy's playing. It sounds very much like a Shot Up or a Thief or the NA style, like, this guy's trying to get space or something like that. Is that how it is? Where
dude, it's
they
fucking
rely on
bonkers.
him?
I mean, Kurt, if you can bring up the Liquid Alliance game, because it was the one where I noticed this the most. Like on Haven. Haven's a good example. They had rounds where Yampy was pushing A. And he's playing Jett, right? He works his way through A short. He gets in. He's attacking Haven A. He smokes his feet, then dashes through his own smoke to get a kill on somebody who's playing at default with his knives. And then he just dies immediately afterwards. And his team isn't there with him. They're not ready to capitalize on the space. But it seems like he's like thriving in the chaos or some kind of element like that. But the way that he plays when he's AWPing, he plays right at the back of the pack. Like he'll play deep on C long, or he'll play deep in like mid window or somewhere in mid, just holding a connector or holding the default box so that Scream can just walk up with his rifle and doesn't have to worry about getting swung on. And it feels like there's a slow integration of Yampy to this team, but they've actually weirdly found something that works for them. It's not something that would work for most teams, I don't think, but they got something. And it's working for them because Scream is such a great player.
I feel like that's sort of like, not that I totally disagree, but it's like slightly downplaying the impact Yampy had in some of these matches. You know, like I feel like he was definitely doing more than just space creation bot. You know, like there was plenty of key moments where he was hitting like really good timings and he was finding like great frags off them. You know, but obviously I do agree with the overarching sentiment. Probably. I feel like this is their move, is to like have this double duel setup and have Yampy be entropy persona and just be chaos and sowing it throughout everyone and just allow Scream to have a lot more presence without necessarily always having to have like the breach to get him in.
What it feels to me like is that Yampy's trying to play like CNED or Baby Bay, but hasn't quite figured it out yet. But he's like on the road. And so he's still managing to generate value for them in terms of the chaos he creates or whatever when he has a rifle in his hands. I mean, and also he's still getting some good moments where he pops the fuck off when he figures it out properly. But he's not got a consistent good feel for it yet. Which is why I was saying I prefer him when he's on the AWP, because then you don't have the gamble of, has he figured out the schmeeg yet, or is he just gonna feed? I feel like you could play a drinking game with him about just schmeeg or feed with Yampy. That was an amazing play from Soulcast as well.
Not even popping the flash because they want them to run so he gets the space. That's so mad. That's so cool.
I was getting so triggered at a Sky throwing their flash yesterday in a scrim. He's throwing exactly what Soulcast did, but he was popping it. So I was turning the flash and then he would pop it behind me. I was so frustrated. So that just gave me PTSD, bro. I think I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah. This Liquid team though, they've got something going. They don't look like they're at the same level as Opportunists or Guild or FPX or whatever, you know. But they've got because you only need to win that one game once they get to the semis. they still do have a chance of making it the finals.
Man, Europe is just
Scream type maps.
So unlucky with their formats and like how tough it is to get through. There's just so many good teams.
Yeah.
And then I'm had to sit there and watch challengers with Wyatt and Balla and Mike and see Victor run around flashing his team.
One thing about that topic, by the way, like the seeding match, whatever, in EU, the one thing that's interesting too, now that we're playing out these brackets, is that these teams some of these guys have never played each other. Whereas NA, literally all the top teams have played each other at least once at some point, seeding match or not. The last grand finals, like FPX versus Guild, like some of these matches they have to beat them hard to make a statement and be like, you guys need to come into this and change your idea of how to play against us, or change your confidence or whatever. Because if you 3-0 a team like that, if then the next time you guys play in Challengers Finals or wherever, all of a sudden you have like the upper hand. The mental game is like won already before it even begins.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think we've basically covered the bracket at this point as well. The European side of it's going to be extremely entertaining, I feel. There's also, if anybody's interested out there, I don't think we should go through it right now, but maybe we'll go through it before Challengers Finals or something. The two Turkish teams have already qualified for Challengers Finals, that being Footballist and Oxygen. And so they're already through to Challengers Finals. There's one more Turkish team that needs to qualify and one more CIS team. So we don't exactly know who those are going to be because it's the winner of Challengers 2 in both of those regions. But we already know in Europe that there is Guild, FPX, Footballist, and Oxygen are already through. So we're starting to build up a feel of what's going on here. And it's been a long time since the Turkish or CIS teams played in European tournaments, in like big tier 1 European tournaments. Yeah. So it's pretty difficult to tell exactly how they're going to match up here. Most people are just predicting the EU teams to go through, but that really might not happen.
Historically, what has been the result in those 2-1 tournaments?
Historically, the Turkish and CIS teams have sat somewhere around like top 8. They've been around like the best Turkish and CIS teams have been somewhere around like 8th best in Europe. But I mean, that's also assuming that you don't consider FPX a bloody CIS team. You know, there's talent in the bloody region. The players are fantastically good. It's just that when you limit yourself to only being in that region, you miss out on being able to add other great pieces and make even better teams. So they end up not being quite at the same level. But fuck, I mean, some of the best players in Europe are from CIS and Turkey. We've got CNED and then all of the rest of the CIS players. Yeah. So yeah, it should be sick.
I guess we're through our topics, and as the honorary host for today, that does bring us to our final topic, our reoccurring topic, one that we always look forward to with a big smile on our face. It's Wyatt's weekly award. Let's take a look.
That was such a good segue, Avast, but unfortunately we added a topic last minute.
Oh yeah, you've been absolutely hard trolled.
Why?
Honestly,
you have to go though, right?
Avast, I mean, his stocks are going up for hosts next week.
I think
he's stunned.
I think Wyatt had to leave at half.
That was his big moment. I can give. Well, what's the topic?
The topic's a big fucking topic.
I can go. Well, maybe we do the award first, and then you guys can talk about the thing. I got a little bit of time. What's the topic? Okay. I didn't even remember. What the fuck were we talking about?
The topic was the FPL stuff that people were talking about. It was Sean and Hiko and TenZ have been talking about whether an FPL system should be added
you guys can get
to Valorant.
Dude,
you got nothing to say on this?
I gotta be honest. I'm gonna be really honest. I don't care.
You don't care?
No. You guys got this one.
Wow. I mean, that's
the award. We'll do FPL because I already did the segue. I got trolled. It wasn't on the topic list. Didn't see it because I probably had that. So let's just do the Wise Weekly Award and then do FPL after.
Oh wow.
Let's just do it because Wise got to go.
Wow. This new host is so bossy.
Wyatt's got to go. Wyatt's got to go.
Give us another nice segue.
Give intro the award again.
It's Wyatt's Weekly Award. Let's look at the segment.
Dude, where's my res? Oh, hey. Didn't see you there. It's Wyatt's Weekly Award. Grab that.
Okay, Wyatt. Let's
got it.
Let's hear it.
God, what an elite award.
Good timing, actually, with the me playing Sage, because it's going to Ethan for playing Sage. I don't know if that was planned, but wasn't planned, says Kurt, but it works out because it's going to Ethan for his Sage play over the course of this Challenger event. Probably, I mean, I think he was definitely, in my eyes, he was the MVP of the tournament overall. Definitely the best Sage in NA at the moment. Definitely the Sage pushing the utility usage the furthest in NA. And past just him being so excellent on Sage and being the MVP of the tournament for me, also really has not been playing the game for that long.
No.
I mean, he has been playing for like 2 months on 100 Thieves, a month and a half. Maybe less than that.
I can't remember exactly when it was.
There's like a tournament every week, so it's going pretty fast, but it really hasn't been that long. And to see him playing so well already, it's worthy of some recognition. So this week, the award going to Ethan.
Yeah, very well deserved, I think.
His aim is crispy. One other thing too is that he's taking the content game to like instantly. He's like, okay, I'm not a Cisco player anymore. I'm going to Valorant. Like, here we go. And his YouTube channel's popping. His streams are popping. Like, he is definitely doing everything right in the scene right now. And honestly paving the path a little bit with those comms videos.
Yeah, Valorant's doing it right now with their players stuff. With like, they're definitely highly prioritizing content and like trying to get some sort of content out. Oh, there it is. There's the pizza wall from 10,000
There
BC.
it is.
And then through the smoke.
Mesopotamia wall here. It's here. But
yeah, they said that Ethan had said that he'd been watching Grim, who apparently is a Sage YouTuber who just has a bunch of fucking TikTok walls. And he said that the whole team had been watching them and kind of presumably looking at them to see whether they're viable to use in pro play. Because not every fun ranked wall can be used in a serious match, because you need the wall for other shit, and you need the Sage to be positioned in certain locations for other stuff. But you can get away with it sometimes, and I really like the stuff that he was bringing out. And they built their defensive setups around him playing certain positions, which I thought was a great idea. It reminded me of BLD in Brazil as well, who's just putting fucking TikTok walls all over the place and trying to get picks off of it. It's really fun.
A lot of his walls, too, they weren't just purely, like, gimmick for kill walls. A lot of them served both purposes, like the wall he does on lane holding a Sent B. It both cuts off the lane, but he also plays on it for a free pick and then can drop off. It was just playing an excellent game. Well, had fun talking about FPL. Oh, wait, Avast, you got to...
Well, I mean, to be fair, I don't know. Do you have to go now?
Time is it? I'll give you like 4 minutes on
All
FPL.
right, well, let's
on FPL. Okay, so I moved the whole order for, I mean, he was still here, but that's cool. That's fine. I'm the host. I can make that decision. I have the decision. So FPL should... Well, there's been a lot of talks. People been mauled in, your usual candidates, Mindo, but also some new ones. Some new ones as well. Hiko, Sean Guerras, they've been out. You guys, what's going on with my ranked matches? I have people that can't aim. They don't know how to use a mouse. Mouseless Marvins over here. They don't know how to aim. They don't know how to use their keyboards. And then sometimes I get the entirety of FPX on my team 4-stacked. And I'm like, what? So then everyone's like, well, maybe we should add an FPL. That's what TenZ proposed here. Should we have a 10-mans? And, but not from the Wizard of Oz. 10-mans as in like 10 people playing in a server.
What the heck is a 10-man from the Wizard of Oz?
A 10-man.
Oh, a 10-man. You're an idiot. You're an idiot.
My wordplay, so powerful. And so yeah, what are our thoughts? What are our thoughts?
I think this is always a better system than ranked. The European players were doing this kind of pro 10-man system. They had a Discord called like the VPD or something. I think it was called like the Valorant Pro Discord or something, or Valorant Pro Division. I can't fucking remember what it was. But some of the players have talked about the fact that it used to have really active pugs going on in there. I don't know whether it still does.
We had the same thing in NA too, with Roy or Strong Legs' Discord as well.
Right. But this feels like a push for something more structured. The thing is, it comes down to me is, does Riot want this? Because Riot need to give this off to somebody else if they want to run it. And it's going to take their pro players away from their ranked system. And while I think it is a good idea, it seems like something that Riot's never going to go for. So it makes it almost immaterial to discuss.
Yeah, that's how I'm feeling about it as well. It'd be cool.
I feel that way too, but like these guys, they constantly are asking for it, and that does tilt the needle slightly in terms of especially like public opinion, and it negatively impacts ranked when they keep doing this stuff.
I mean, did you see the Riot person replying to that thread right there? The dripping thing. That's a Riot employee, isn't it? Riot Evermore. Senior competitive designer. Yeah.
He's been teasing a bunch of like, well, we're going to give you an opportunity to a way to play like as a team in some sort of competitive queue.
Game system is the thing, because Riot's a lot like Blizzard, where like these developers much prefer it to be stuck in their own systems versus outside systems. They are not stuck, but rather they want the systems to take place in them, because it gives them a lot more control over it, and also they're able to use them in a lot of different ways.
The natural pathway as well. Like the better you get, you know where to go. You don't have to reach global elite in CS and think, well, I've achieved everything there is to achieve. And if you're a casual, you don't realize that FPL or ESEA or whatever is even a thing. Yeah. What I really want is not an FPL system. It's I don't even know what it's called. The League of Legends system. What's it called? Clash. Yeah.
Clash.
What is that?
Let's go.
In-game tournaments.
Oh. Yeah.
So you can just sign up as a team and you play an in-game tournament system. And by all accounts, everybody that I've heard of that's participated in it, I don't play League, so I don't know, loves it and says that the system works incredibly well. I'm imagining, though, that is a shit ton of man hours to implement something like that within a game, right? And
just maintaining it, too.
Didn't they do that with like Fortnite as well for some of the big events? Didn't Fortnite have like...
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Like, but that's definitely the system I've always wanted for developer-backed games, is like, versus making an external third-party system, it's always better to just integrate it into your game and just add pricing and add a way where it's like a clear path, and then you can like sort of set that launch board.
I do think that that's kind of what they're asking for. It's like a dev integrated FPL, right? Sure. Or not necessarily they're asking for a Clash system. And this is kind of this might be an unpopular opinion, but I hate pugging in these games. Pugging is the death of organized play and getting casuals involved in esports and actually getting them to figure out what the game is, because ranked is not ever going to be what you guys are, what organized play will look like. Even at a low level, it is just not. These games are meant to be played 5v5 with teammates who are calming. If you're not doing that, even in League of Legends, if you're not doing that, you are playing an inferior, frustrating, and like really hard game to get into and to play. So a Clash system, infinitely better, but at the same time, like FPL and pugs and ESEA in general have caused this NA scene to be so bad. In my opinion, it is the reason why NA is so trash in every aspect of their CSGO history. And yes, bro, it's toxic. It gets you to play in ways that are just not conducive to real teams. Like, you learn so many bad habits. You don't learn how to calm. You don't learn how to even play together as a teammate. Like, people expect you to be able to just be like, whoa, you should have flashed for me, because they're so into playing pugs and just randomly like getting a good teammate or all of a sudden, right? There's no working at it. There's nothing like that. It's just grind as a solo, which is already provably not going to get you to be good at the actual 5v5 game. So yeah, that's where I take issue with this entire FPL system. I just think that pugs in general, and that being the way to be the road to pro and stuff, is just not good.
Wow, that's an impassioned speech. Bro, I wasn't expecting that one.
It's kind of...
Yeah, I'm on board.
It seems to depend very heavily on what game you're playing as well, though, because I know that for League of Legends, you can solo queue your way up to such a high level that you can just slot straight into a game, into a team, it feels like. But I don't understand really what the difference is. It feels like in a game like CS, you can get by just based on your mechanics more than your teamwork element. But in a MOBA kind of setting, the mechanical aspect is so intertwined with the decision-making that you have to make and how you play as a team that by virtue of getting to the top, you must have learned that stuff. Whereas you can get to the top of a ranked ladder or an FPL system in a game like CS by learning bad habits, I feel. Like maybe
I think
that's
that
the
it comes down to
difference.
Behavior and like culture in NA and just CS and TAC FPS in general. Like culturally, it's been a system that we just don't trust, right? Pugging in general, we're like, I'm gonna get this guy on my team and he's gonna rage and just in general like that. Whereas in League of Legends, especially in Korea and even in NA, for example, not so much in NA. I think the culture is still there in League of Legends where you reach the top and it doesn't matter and it's not good practice and it's a waste of time. Whereas like in Korean League of Legends, the top of that ladder is like really like people pay attention to that. Same thing in like StarCraft 2, which is completely different, but they are grinding that ladder and it's real practice that's meaningful for their real games. And they've made it so that League of Legends, even though it's not organized 5v5, they're still solo queuing into it. They've made it so that that is good enough. FPL would be that, by the way. It would be replicating scrim experience. It would be all of that. But it's just so forced and so gated and so kept to just a few it just kept the entire scene almost and made it so that all the leagues, all the organized play just did not matter whatsoever.
How do you change that culture, though? I feel like that's the most difficult thing that you can possibly do.
Bye-bye, Wyatt.
Have fun.
Bye-bye, Mr.
Goodbye.
Wyatt.
Bye, Wyatt.
I feel like changing a culture like that is almost impossible. We have the same thing in Overwatch, though, right? Where the difference between, even in North America, between West Coast when all of the OWL players were there and East Coast was dramatically different. And then if you go to Korea when the players are in the off-season and that's where all of the best players tend to be in the off-season, the difference between Korea and NA is massive. But it does seem to be like a difference in their attitude overall. And it doesn't seem like you can add enough incentives. Like the FPL, the idea is that there is a prize for winning. Therefore, you are incentivized to win. And by being incentivized to win, you are supposed to try and act like it's a team environment. But that pathway doesn't seem to work, actually.
But it's all about exposing the max amount of players. I think for me, the solution for in-game for every thing, and ever since I saw Fortnite doing it now, Clash for League, which I didn't know as much about, was that at least for esports culture and like competition is so much more heavily embedded in Korea that like you don't necessarily like you never really needed an FPL, right? Yep. Like you didn't really need it. And in NA, the idea was, well, we're going to have an FPL and we'll bring more people on. And those guys will be really incentivized, right? But also because overall esports and competitive gaming are such a smaller segment of the population and general interest, FPL then also locked further of the potential people you could create out of those areas, right? Because it's not easily accessible. It's away from the mainstream. So even if you're like currently a casual player, but you might be later interested in it in North America, you never found access to it because of FPL, right? And so it got locked into a smaller group because there's overall less esports culture. And then you further segmented it with FPL, right? Even though technically it's incentivizing, it's less accessible. So personally, I do think that in-game tournaments and things like that for North America in particular, and just in general, but particularly North America, are the way to go. Because I think there's a huge population here. And even if there's less total interest in playing competitively, there's so many more people that if we just give them access to the tools to play it, they will be there. Then we could start building the culture, right? Because the first part is introducing it. You don't just suddenly say like, that's some real like, you don't just suddenly say like, hey, esports, it's time now, everyone play, right? And because all the casuals are gonna be like, but what about my Viper fan art? Like what's happening there? But the point is you give them access to it to where it's seamless as part of the game, right? And then over time, 100 years from now, when we're in our jet packs and our nuclear powered uranium Heelys going down the street, there's going to be people that have had multiple years to access like in-game esports culture, and then it just bleeds into the rest of it as it goes on, right? Like you would say currently North America, 20 years ago, esports was extremely niche. Like no one knew. Like there was a bunch of guys and playing on CRTs, and they were, there's that old CS picture of the guy that's like taped to the fucking the ductwork, playing on his keyboard. That was the group. And now we're like, oh, we have like gaming cafes now, even in the US. Esports is a lot more. There's a lot more. But if we give in-game resources for people to play, I think that's how you start changing the culture, because you can't just say like the culture needs to change and here's how we'll do it. You need to make it wildly accessible to a huge amount of people because it hasn't normally been part of the culture to do so. That's my opinion, at least. I think in-game is the best way to do it.
I do think that there is a wild demand, I guess is the right way to say it. There's a demand for ways to play the game as a solo person, like somebody who doesn't have friends or doesn't have a team, and that is probably the majority of people playing Valorant. That's why I'm not opposed to like a solo queue and stuff like that, because it makes the game fair for them, as fair as it can be, right? It's still just RNG based on your teammates, but like there's so many people who want to play as a solo, and that's why even in Fortnite, for example, where they really have catapulted this in-game tournament thing to unbelievable levels, the solo mode, while it's not even the most fulfilling, is the most popular, right? So I get the need for a path for a solo, for somebody who doesn't have a team, who can't find a team, who doesn't have the tools for it to. We need a path for those types of people, for like a Toy Story, for example, right? And right now, the rank system is not going to do that anymore. I feel like maybe a few people will get picked up from ranked, but
I think that's more of a failure of the social system, though. Well, like the friends system and that kind of stuff is the area that I'd like to see them shift the focus to. Because if you put a system like Clash in Valorant, and people are like, "Well, how am I supposed to play? I don't have a team."
yes.
You need to build out the relationship building aspect, so that when you play ranked, you add a friend. I don't know whether you guys started playing video games on Steam, but I did, and I was just running around 2Fort servers in TF2, making friends with people who dunked on me on Sniper, and then we'd go and play together another day, and we'd chat to people over voice chat, and you build those relationships. It's supposed to be a social experience, playing video games as well.
And that's something we didn't even talk about this topic, actually. The whole point of this was like bringing up the FPL was like solo and group queue. We didn't really actually talk about that aspect. I didn't bring that up as like, so like, should we have solo queue? Should we have a group queue at all? Like ignoring FPL style and Clash style stuff, like are solo and group queues necessary in this game? And also, I've already seen arguments from people saying like the player base isn't high enough for like these things. I'm like, then when is the player base ever high enough? If Valorant currently does not have a high enough player base to implement solo queue, I'm not arguing for them currently, right? I'm just saying like that seems like a weird argument to me, because the game's a year old. It's massively popular with casual and competitive audiences currently. What do we fucking need? Do we just need second Fortnite to ever have a solo queue? Like, I don't know.
So 5v5 queues have historically failed because of player base issues in League of Legends, and League of Legends has a massive player base, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's data there that's like, okay, yeah, nobody plays it because everybody for some reason ranks the solo queue player more, like the solo queue rank more, and it just makes it fail. But I think that if it's like a scheduled type of thing where there's a tournament on like starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, I think you'll all of a sudden get a bunch of people interested in playing those, just like in Fortnite and just like in Clash. So yeah, I do think solo queues are necessary in a game like this.
Yeah.
Just for the demand alone.
Yeah. Well,
I agree with that.
I think at the end of the day, though, it's early to be having these conversations. And I think, especially with this developer, I can see it being a necessity to push the developer in a certain direction if it wasn't Riot. But Riot have already built this system in League. And I imagine that they are likely to build this system in Valorant somewhere down the road as well. So I don't think you're addressing new ideas to the developer here.
Yeah, and they've already said that they're working on, not necessarily saying, oh, we're working on Clash, but they've said like we're working on a some place where you can play 5v5. The one thing though is that the Clash system doesn't really work for TenZ, doesn't really work for Hiko. It doesn't work for these guys because they're playing scrims already. They're playing matches already, right? So they don't really give a crap to go win. Like, it's good content for sure, and Fortnite has proved that, right? Where stomping on random teams is good content, but it's not for them. And I don't think that they'll a Clash system is put in the game and they'll be like, oh, ranked is saved all of a sudden.
No, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just the problem we have with pro players in any game, right?
But they're the 1%.
The NA solo queue is bad.
Yeah.
But also
all that mentality does ruin ranked even more. It adds the culture that we're talking about, and it makes it, and it perpetuates. It's a forever circle because the pro players are like, whoa, ranked isn't good for me. And then all the Plat kids and all the and sure, there are problems with ranked, granted, for sure. Like, that is probably not even like debatable. But the stuff that Hiko's dealing with, man, is not relevant to like half the Plat players that are going to start complaining. And if you go into ranked with an idea that ranked is shit, you're gonna have a bad time no matter what.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, other games with much better ranked cultures still have the same structural issues with ranked.
There is no perfect matchmaking system. Is what I at this point have learned is like there are systems that work and there are systems that are good, like solo queue. Solo queue, good system. That's something that's proven that it's a good implement to any game. It's worth being there because people don't want to have to. You don't want to have to be playing against some 5-stat group that's all in Discord, and they have like they have the maps pulled up, and they have the epic pin, and they're mapping out the lines and where they're gonna smoke, and then you have your guys that are like chewing on their cables and stuff, and like there's just no way, like there's just like that's not fun. Like solo queue is 100% a good system. In-game tournaments to increase wider appeal for people, that's a good system for the long term in particular. Sure, it's not going to fix for your Hikos and your Sean Garris's and all the people in the Immortal Radiant range that are pros or ex-pros that are really wanting to get high-level thing. But I mean, the reality is, FPL wasn't a great system either as it's been proven already. It's been shown that FPL wasn't a great system. It's always better to have it integrated into the game, and you're never going to get like a perfect matchmaking system, and that's just how it's going to be, in my opinion. I think that's it. I think the real conversation is just, can we get more into the in-game client like solo queue and in-game tournaments? Because that's really, and also improving socials, like you said, Josh, because that's like the huge peak of what you can do with like in-game matchmaking stuff.
I don't think anybody's done a good job with socials in a long time.
So that's the end of our topic list then.
There we go. Avast, you want to close us out? Tell the people what they need to post a comment off.
Post a comment below if you find, first of all, from all the people that do play ranked a lot, do you think an FPL system is a good idea? Do you feel like you'd much rather have more in-game integration? Do you think, is a solo queue necessary at all? Like, what are your thoughts on ranked? What do you want to slam your face on the keyboard, and what do you want to put out there in the YouTube comment section below?
You broadened that every time you said a new sentence.
Did I broaden that? Okay, well, we'll narrow it down. We're narrowing it down. Is an FPL ESEA system necessary, or can we do it all through in-game? There we go. And also, second part to the question, do we need a solo queue? There we go.
Okay, excellent.
Solo queue is part of solo queue is part of it. Solo queue is part of this conversation. That's it. Okay. That's it. No more.
Well done. Excellent hosting job, Avast. One more reminder as well. We have another back chat episode coming at you on next Monday. And I believe that it's going to be with the esteemed Nucky of Team Heretics as well, who just got annihilated eliminated. Wrong word. Eliminated from Masters 2 contention. So that should be an extremely good episode. We're looking forward to that. And you can catch us then. That's the next time we'll be available. See ya.